Okay, we're a couple minutes late here. Call the meeting to order at 9:34. Just want to acknowledge we have Councillor Burrows joining us online. Just making sure, Councillor Burrows, you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Administration, any additions, omissions? No. Anything from council? Not seeing any. If I get a motion to accept the agenda. Councillor Wilhelm?
I'll motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's passed. 3.1, adoption of the minutes, April 9th, 2025, regular council meeting minutes. Anybody see anything there? Not seeing any. Councillor Dean?
I'd move that council accepts the minutes from the April 9th, 2025 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that one's passed. We do have a few delegations this morning. First one here at 9:35 from the Pembina Hill School Division. Whenever you guys are ready, we are good for you. Just start here with a quick round of introductions around our table so you know who you got here. Ms. Anderson, if you want to start for us.
Heather Anderson, Acting Recording Secretary.
Hi.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Matthew Ferris, CEO. Hello.
Hello.
Dave Cush, I'm the counselor for Anselmo and the Reeve.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Whitecourt East, Councillor.
Alan Dean, Whitecourt Central.
Andrew World, Interim Director of Corporate Services.
Joan Slitway, Director of Community Services.
And virtually.
And I'm John Burrows, Councillor for Whitecourt West.
Nice to meet y'all.
Whenever you
Thank
are
you.
ready, sir, we're good for you.
Hi, good morning.
Where's my book? Sorry.
My name's David Truckey and I'm the board chair for Pembina Hills. With me today, I have trustee Sherry Allen from Westlock Ward North, and I have Victoria Kane with me as well from Barhead County Ward West. So we are, in fact, you are our final wrap up in our community engagement series that we've done through the winter season. We wanted to touch base with all of our municipal partners across our division. Pembina Hills takes in a number of municipalities from Westlock County, town of Westlock, Barhead County, town of Barhead, Woodlands, Big Lakes, Village of Clyde. So we've got quite a few, and Northern, Lesser Slave River. So we interact with quite a few jurisdictions across our division, and we wanted to come out and see everybody and do a little bit of a hello, answer a few questions if we are able to, and give you a little bit of an update and overview of where the division is at these days. So we've given you a little handout, cheat sheet of information for you, and we're going to touch on most of the information on here, as well as update you a little bit about Fort Assiniboine School and a couple of initiatives that the division is working on as well, and a little bit about our capital plan that we have underway. So as I mentioned, Pembina Hills encompasses the towns of Swan Hills, Barhead, and Westlock, Village of Clyde, and then the portions of Woodlands, Big Lakes, MD of Lesser Slave River, and of course Barhead County and Westlock County. We're located on Treaties 6, 7, and 8 territories, and our priorities remain student and staff relationships and literacy and numeracy, as well as support for our staff, our students, and our families across the division. We have roughly 3,500 students across our community schools. We have 11 community schools, 2 Hutterite colonies, and 2 outreach schools, and we're in the process of developing our 3rd Hutterite school at High Ridge, which will be coming on stream in the next 1 to 2 years. We also own and operate one of the largest virtual schools in Alberta, which is sort of the next generation of what was the Alberta Distance Learning Centre, or used to be called the Correspondence School, which was centered out of Barhead. Currently, we have just under 7,000 students registered with us. They cycle in and out through the year as virtual schools operate on a 12-month calendar, and summertime being our busiest time of the year for all of those folks. We also have 164 students in our early learning programs. 110 are funded by Alberta Education as needing an extra boost before they begin their schooling years, and 54 we designate as play partners. We offer specialized programs across the divisions in our community schools depending on location. We have French immersion in Barrhead and Westlock, and they are a robust program in both of those schools. We have an alternative Christian program that's bursting at the seams at Nearlandia. Has been a great success there for many, many years, generations in fact. We have dual credit and registered apprenticeship programs, work experience programs. As I said, we operate 2 outreach schools, which delivers education on a platform designed around the students' needs far more so than they are able to get in a community school. Those students come with us with a variety of complex issues that we work around and work very hard to get them educated. They may have housing insecurity, food insecurity. These are students that are of high school age, so the challenges are a little bit more vibrant and right in front of them. We even in Westlock we do students' laundry while they're in school because they don't have access to wash their own clothes. As well as our food programs that we operate across all of our community schools in the mornings and at lunchtime. Our Vista Virtual School we're extremely proud of is centered in Calgary but managed from our Barrhead offices, and it's been running several years very successfully now. Every day in terms of transportation, we move nearly 2,700 students across the division. That number is rising and falling with current changes in the Alberta Education distance to school, which has changed a couple of times over the last couple of years, where the province is changing the 1 kilometer, 1.6 kilometer, and based on age as who is eligible to ride the bus, particularly in town. So that 2,700 number changes a little bit year over year, but that's generally our number. We are one of the few divisions that owns our own fleet of buses, which gives us far greater control over not only our fleet, but we are able to manage, train, and retain our drivers according to standards that we're able to input as opposed to contracted driver situation. Our average bus ride is 17 kilometers or 37 minutes one way. That average number includes in-town bus rides. So we in fact were discussing busing times last week, and the reality is students that live in rural areas, they are on the bus far longer than 37 minutes one way. That number actually is probably 64, 69, 72 minutes one way, which every one of us probably thinks that's an awfully long time on a bus. For a student, whether they're 6 years old or 16 years old, is a long time on a bus. But it simply goes to the old, there used to be 10 kids on 1 quarter, now there's 1 kid on 10 quarters. And of course, we look at school strength and viability every year. So our schools that are in danger of grade reconfiguration or even closure of grade sections, we do that report annually and look at it very closely. We're not in the business of closing schools, we're in the business of operating schools. But sometimes the business of operating schools means you have to make changes. I believe the last time we made a significant change was 12 years ago. Trustee Ellen and I were on the board at that time, and we amalgamated 3 schools into one, which was Fawcett, Jarvie, and DAP, which amalgamated at DAP and is called Pembina North School. As you can see on the other side of the page where our enrollment trends are, our enrollment has remained fairly static at that 3,500 student level for several years now. It goes up and down each year. We're actually on a wee bit of a trend upwards currently, so we feel good about that, but of course a few more students would always be better in all of our classrooms. When the 3 divisions came together, Swan Hills, Barrhead, and Westlock, we had 5,000 students in 1995. So obviously from 95 until today, we have decreased that 1,500 student, but we've been pretty consistent. We had a little dip below into about 3,200 for a few years, but we've climbed back up. One of the things that we do note is that homeschooling is on the rise, and certainly COVID played a large part in that. We went from pre-COVID to probably, and Trustee Kane would know the number better than me, about 75 homeschooled students across the region, to today we have 375 across Pembina Hills. So it's a significant amount. And we would, we love to support the programs and the choices of those parents and students, but we would welcome them back into our community schools at any time. Our budget in 24-25 is a $70.3 million budget. We have a total of roughly 700 staff comprised of certificated teaching staff, non-certificated staff, education assistants, operations, bus drivers, transportation, and then administrative staff at our office in Barrhead. Our regional office is centered at Barrhead. Our budget going forward, we have seen several changes from the ministry this coming year, along with some adjustments in some of our allocations as well as some of our enrollments. Our budget is going to be significantly reduced by roughly $5 million this coming year. So we are working very hard to not only bring that budget in to balance, but also to balance the needs of our students and staff across the division. And ultimately that will mean there will be some significant changes in classroom sizes and configurations. It is.
Hold you for 2 seconds here. Councillor Dean?
Sorry, I don't know. Do you want to hold questions until the end, or would you rather that, or can
Once I get rolling, I'm elected just like you. Once I get rolling, it's hard to stop a train, but jump right in, we can answer as best we
Okay,
can.
well, and I don't want to derail this, but I find that surprising to hear you say that your guys' budget is being reduced when the government of Alberta's school requisition is going up like 12%. Have they given you any indication as to how that, you would assume that you would be going up by 12%, or at least I would assume that.
So we'll take a little side step into funding. The province has designated pots of funding, boom, 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 that you're seeing increases in. There are divisions that are growing rapidly and exponentially. Most rural divisions are not. If you were in the corridor from Edmonton, Calgary, south to Lethbridge, etc., in that area, those divisions are growing annually. They're seeing double-digit percentage increases, where we would see 1% change year over year. We're doing some funding adjustments with Vista Virtual on our student enrollment. So we're seeing some changes in funding, our funding dollars coming in. It's basically broken into two different sections, about $2.5 million each, of funding reduction that we're facing for our upcoming budget year, so our next school year. As well, base funding, so the base allocation of dollars that we receive per student did not change. That number has stayed the same. The province typically will fund increases to certificated teaching staff, and depending on which section of our employment group, they may fund those increases independently of base funding, but that's never guaranteed until after the negotiation has happened. Most, as you know by the media, most divisions have been negotiating with several of their sections of workforce. Education assistance has been the one that's been in the news the most, and most divisions are starting to settle those agreements now. And we're pleased to see that. Okay. We're negotiating that we have going on right now is progressing well, and we expect to be finalizing that within weeks, if not a couple of months. So we're not outside the normal there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. In terms of our capital plan has just changed that we submitted to the ministry, but the current capital plan that we are operating under right now is that Barrhead Composite is our #1 priority. Number 2, Barrhead Elementary for a partial modernization, and then priority 3 is Westlock Elementary. So Barrhead Composite was actually awarded by Alberta Infrastructure and the ministry a year and a half ago.
Year and a half.
Started out being $29 million, now has risen to $38 million. That's pre-tender, so we are actually out to tender right now for construction. We expect construction to begin this summer, fall, and it's about a 3-year project. So sections of the school will literally be moving around the physical building as we demolish, reconstruct, and reconfigure Barhead Comp. It was built in 3 sections and is being reduced from a 1,227 student capacity to 854 student capacity. The board itself is committed to a $1.5 million expansion of one of the gymnasiums to better serve the community needs. We are repurposing a gymnasium, so it's going from 3 gyms to 2, which doesn't sit well in any community because a community accesses our gymnasiums for external activities, pickleball, volleyball, all of that stuff comes to those school gyms in Barhead. Funding across the ministry is based on several things: square footage of the school percentage that's being utilized, and student count, of course. Student count being the most important, but everything plays into that funding formula. Our priority list is changing now that Barhead Comp has been an approved project. We're extremely pleased that it's an approved project. Our facilities person has been working on this for years and years and years, and is probably right on the edge of his retirement, so he's not leaving until it's finished, and we're extremely pleased with that, with Mr. Tyman. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Kane. She's going to highlight some items for you at Fort Assiniboine School, which is the school that, of course, your county touches on to.
Actually, that would be me.
Did I say Kane?
You did.
I'm sorry, I got them backwards.
That's all right. So, probably most of you are aware of the fact that in past August, the trustee for Swan Hills Fort Assiniboine moved. And because it was so late in the term, we decided, rather than having a by-election, that we would designate trustees to serve those areas. So I serve Fort Assiniboine School. So yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit about the school. It is a K-9 school with 21 junior high students and 60 elementary students, for a total of 81, and it has a projected enrollment of 85 next year, so hopefully going up a little bit. They had a new principal this year, so he's been getting to know the community and the school. There are currently multiple 2-grade splits because of the lower enrollment number. They can't accommodate individual grades. Kindergarten is still a standalone program, but the remainder are split classes. Pembina Hills is returning the early learning program to Fort Assiniboine in the fall. Pre-COVID, there was an early learning program there, and it moved to an external program through COVID, and we're bringing it back into the school in the fall. The superintendent and local trustees over the past few months did a student engagement piece where the designated trustee for the school went with the superintendent, and we sat down and chatted with students about the school, and we heard absolute positives from the students at Fort Assiniboine. They like their school, and they're happy there.
The purpose of the student engagement was to get the good, the bad, and the ugly from the students directly. They were encouraged to speak candidly. Depending on the school, you could get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we were pleased that students didn't just hold back and tell us sugar-coated answers. We wanted to know what's going on, what they felt comfortable with, and what they would like to see reasonably as change. Recess being the entire day was the #1 choice in many elementary grades, but of course that's not entirely possible.
Absolutely, there was frivolous things like recess, but we were very pleased at how realistic and candid and honest the students were. You know, they shared good information. It was a great experience. So there's a strong sense of community throughout the school, with older students helping out younger students, in the various activities they do. Students are active in sports, and there's a strong music program in Fort Assiniboine. Teachers work hard to offer interesting CTF courses for the junior high. That's the extracurricular courses. They have a really interesting, and they've done it for a number of years. Probably those of you that have been around know about it. They have an interesting collaboration done through Bow Valley Habitat, where they raise rainbow trout hatchlings to be released. So that's a great experience for the kids to watch that happening and be involved in that. The parent community is very supportive. They run a breakfast program and offer hot lunches several times a month. I got to participate in the parent-driven white elephant sale at Christmas time this year. Went and helped the kids wrap Christmas presents. It's an opportunity, and I mean, things are reasonably priced, and a letter is sent home to the parents saying, this is the price range of items, and the kids bring their money and get to buy Christmas presents for their family members, and then there's people there to help them wrap them. So that was, I really enjoyed that. That was a great experience. What else? Oh, they brought Trickster Theatre in for a week. Then they worked with the kids throughout the week and created a school-wide production, which then they had a community event to showcase their production. With population changes, I guess their biggest challenge is the concern of maintaining enrollment.
No?
So a couple of questions, and yeah, to your point about maintaining enrollment, that's obviously one of the biggest struggles that a rural school division deals with. I've heard that maybe the grade 1 and grade 2 classes are the bubble of students at that age is good. Is that accurate?
I think that is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had two questions. One is relates to the early childhood program that you guys are bringing back into the school. Will that have an effect on the existing Mums and Tots program?
We understand that the community program currently operated is extremely successful, very popular. Putting the early learning program back into the school under our direction will provide us a consistency across the division. So we operate all that program in every other school we have, with the exception of Fort Assiniboine, and we wanted to return that consistency to the community. We've had some parents reach out and ask for it, so it will be a bit of a building, because I know the other program is very popular, has been up to date. We've had meetings with Miss Williams, who is the head of the not-for-profit society that operates it, and our team from senior admin has been in contact with them, over the years. Obviously, when they were in our school building, it was a closer connection than it is today, but our supports have been available to that program throughout, so yeah.
Sure, okay, thanks. And then
If I can just add to that, it is important to the division to offer the same opportunities from community to community. And like Chair Truckee said, at this point, Fort Assiniboine was the only school that didn't have that
Sure.
program.
Yeah, certainly understandable. The other question I had is, I apologize, Council, for bringing this up, but the sign, the community sign that is on the school property, we've heard kind of conflicting, unsubstantiated reports that the school division is in favor of having a sign located there, as opposed to not being in favor of it. And can you just clarify whether you've received any presentations from community groups on the sign, and do you have a position?
We haven't had any.
Not that I know of.
We haven't had presentation at our board meeting on it.
Okay,
I've heard the occasional rattle about the sign, but nothing specific.
okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so the one other thing that I'd like to talk about is a division-wide challenge, and it's what we call flybys. So that's when people don't stop the school bus when its red lights are flashing and the stop sign is out. So, and it's not a problem unique to our division. It's province-wide, it's nationwide, it's probably throughout the continent. We perhaps have better statistics than some schools, and we credit that to the fact that we do have our own fleet and our own drivers, so they're perhaps a little bit more committed to keeping track of that sort of thing than a contract driver would be. So as of the middle of April, since August, within our division, there has been 80 flybys. Some of the things that we are doing, our fleet of 68 buses, we have 29 external cameras that cost about $1,000 each. And over the past couple of years, we are just finally starting to get convictions as a result of the pictures taken. If the camera gets the license plate number, we can go to the detachment and they will follow through on it. We also have 8 buses with external or extended arms that go farther across the highway, that go into the oncoming lane, and those cost about $6,000 a piece. So obviously, equipping the whole fleet with cameras and signs is a slow process. Unfortunately, the extended arms are not as accessible as you might assume. People still go around them. People will go into the ditch on the wrong side of the highway to go around if if they feel that they have that need. Some of the other things we're doing, the local newspaper is running a series of information articles for us. We have, there's a video that was made by parents and students from another school division about flybys, and we've got that posted on our website. Bylaw and RCMP are aware of our concerns and are stepping up enforcement. And on a provincial level, we are advocating for an awareness campaign.
Councillor Wilhelm.
Through the chair to the presenters, I don't want to cut you guys short, but just so you guys know, we're over, our next delegations are here, so
Okay.
we should be moving on if we can.
Is there a trap door under here? Is that what you're telling me?
Okay.
So, the last, I was just gonna touch on trustee Allen's comment about the buses. The latest technology to come out is LED backlit signage. It is approved in many jurisdictions across the country, but not fully in Alberta yet. So the presentation we had, the LED signage on the bus and on the side arm is far brighter in dark conditions, which we know in Alberta, we're dark for November to March. But until we get approval through the ministry, we can't install them on the buses. I believe the one on the top of the bus is approved, but the sidearm isn't. So that would be the next step in making that bus brighter and making that signage more apparent. But flybys have been around for generations. The Reeve at Lesser Slave River talked about being, almost run over by a vehicle in the 50s. So it's not new.
Maybe the 60s.
Yeah. We'll give them the credit for that.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I will say just one little thing. It's not that this has been going on for generations, and It's been going along since, not that we're trying to change the bylaws of how since 1986, the Transportation Minister of the day changed that all municipalities can rule their own governing rules on that, where we're not trying to change that, we're trying to just change or just inform people, educate people about what the rules are so that it keeps everyone safe, it keeps our kids safe. I do know that they do happen in Fort Assiniboine, but they don't necessarily get reported all the time, and we just want to get people to report them and keep our kids safe. Keep our kids safe.
One more question here, Councilor
Yeah,
Dean.
sorry, and I just wanted to clarify, you said you had 85 odd buses and you had 29 cameras?
Yes.
68 buses.
68 buses, and so just a little less than half of them
Yeah.
have cameras?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one other thing, just so you're aware, that might come back to your table in the not too distant future, because we're just sort of finding out about it. There are information signs reminding people just that you have to stop when the bus's lights are activated. And they're about $500 a sign, so they're like a traffic sign, they would go on the side of the road. So I mean, obviously, there has to be approval to have that done, and at some point, we would perhaps be looking for collaboration to help support that.
Is there any other questions?
Got any other quick questions here before we move on? Not seeing any. I'd like to thank you guys very much for your presentation, the time, and the information. It's greatly appreciated for everything you guys do for the schools and the children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
With that, if I can get a motion to accept for information. Councilor Dean?
I move that council receive the presentation from Pembina Hill School Division for information.
Thank you, Councilor. Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. We'll run a little line here. We'll move into community futures. Michelle, when they're clear and you're ready to get in there. Thank you guys again. Have a safe trip back home.
Sorry, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
So I'll try to be a little quicker. Do we have presentation queued up, or you're just going?
Just probably wait for Nikki to get back to that.
Sure. Yep, no, that's fine. Seems a little smaller group I'm presenting to this morning.
We have a couple councillors away at the hydrogen conference.
Okay.
So we have Councillor Burrows joining us in line, and he's got a quorum
Hello,
today.
John. Everyone had a good Easter? Nice break?
Very good, yeah.
Very nice break. I'll go ahead and get started, I think, just because I know that you are running a little bit behind, and I know that you guys have already received the package, so a lot of what you see there, I'll just be sharing a little bit of additional information for you. So just once again, thank you for having me and for allowing me to share the review for 24-25. Because you are all familiar with, no, that's fine. Because you're up, do you have a?
It doesn't work.
Okay, so you are all familiar with who I am and what we do. I thought this year I'll focus a little bit more on the big picture of Community Futures. And so really, Community Futures is Canada's largest community economic development network. So beyond what we do regionally, we have 267 autonomous offices across Canada. So there's 27 in Alberta, 90 in Western Canada, 61 in Ontario, 41 in Atlantic provinces, 67 in Quebec, and 8 northern. So in total, that's 267 offices that are located remotely, rurally, from coast to coast to coast. And so while our office may only have 5 dedicated staff to support the region, we're not alone. We have the opportunity to be able to connect and receive support and learn from a vast majority of other economic development offices. So what we're hoping that we are able to do within our region is deliver results and drive economic development. But because we are a group of 5, we really and truly rely on our partners and our stakeholders, which Woodlands is one of the largest economic development support networks across Canada. You're one of those members. So in rural Canada has 15 million Canadians. The small businesses make up 98% of all businesses in Canada, which means rural Canada contributes 30% of the country's GDP. So that's why I think it's very important to stress what we can do, but we need all of our stakeholders and our partners to be able to work with us in terms of trying to create the economic development efforts that we want to. In this next slide, I'd be remiss if I didn't address it, is especially with municipal elections coming up in October, and knowing that there's a possibility we'll have some new council members. Having Dave on our board this last year has been tremendous. It's really allowed some consistency and some commitment. So fingers crossed, we can keep that going. But if for some reason that were not the case, we would really hope that council would take into consideration whoever they do choose. It's a big learning curve when you sit on the board with Community Futures, and it's something that we really rely on our board to provide the leadership, to bring the skill sets that we look at in terms of governing and managing the organization. So they're also very instrumental in providing the strategic direction that myself and staff are relied on to do in our day-to-day operations. So the board does have a huge responsibility, and I'm hoping that that will be taken into consideration, because the longer term we can have specific board members, the more successful the organization can be. Over the last year or so, we have been able to achieve a number of milestones, as well as, of course, like everybody else, faced a number of challenges. So we have seen some regional business growth, along with, in terms of economic diversification and community commitment. What that means to us, though, is while we have been able to navigate, we also have seen a multitude of challenges. And that's from the RRF, which you've heard me discuss quite a bit in the last couple of years, but this past year we had the deadline, and so that was where people were able to meet the forgivable portion of their loans if they were paid up and or had to go to refinancing. So we did see a number of small businesses able to meet that, which we were not anticipating originally. So that was tremendous news for us. We do still have a number of those, however, that have the deadline that had to continue on to be able to meet their payments, and that will probably continue to be a struggle for some of them. While we were had those struggles, we were also successful in assisting in creating and maintaining expansion of 41 small businesses within the region, and provided 557 individuals with business training sessions and small business advisory services. Last year, we did see fewer entrepreneurs and small business owners, however, that were able to meet the limited criteria that we have in order to be successful in their loans. Even as a developmental lender, we were seeing that. And there's a number of different factors as to why that exists. But however, we were successful to distribute 5 new business financing loans from startup and expansion creation, along with 8 new jobs, and invested $215,000 into the region's local small businesses this past year. Of those loans, 3 of them were youth, and that consists of adults 34 and under. We have a unique youth loan program that's different than any of the other offices out there, as well as 2 female entrepreneurs. These both are pillars that we are required to try to meet in terms of the federal government, and we know that female entrepreneurs were affected quite drastically due to COVID, because moms had to go back home and look after children. So that meant either leaving their business or taking their business home and trying to operate that way. And I'm also pleased to say, with the new fiscal year only being 20-some days in, we currently have 4 new loans that are being put forward for consideration. One of those, again, meeting one of our pillars in terms of an Indigenous small business, new Canadian small business, another youth, and 1 business that will be expanding into another community for a total regional investment of an additional $650,000 that we're currently looking at. So this next slide will show you that where we currently sit in terms of regional investment. Now, this does also include the RRF loans that currently exist throughout the 10 communities within our region, and it kind of breaks it down as to where those investments currently sit in the region. So currently, we have approximately $420,570 invested in the region through regular loans and the RRF loan program. The RRF program added $540 million into the economy across Canada as CF organizations. We get to keep those funds moving forward. So as those funds are returned, Community Futures organizations across Canada will get to keep that money. Now, at this point in time, we don't know exactly the criteria that we will be, what each office will receive from that, but it is, we are told that it will go into loan investments. And so it will be up to us to be able to try to create the awareness and get those funds out there. No other government delivery partner got to keep the recovered funds, not BDC and not the banks. And so it'll be up to us to leverage this opportunity once we are aware of the criteria. So this next slide also talks about opportunities for investment, and this is before we receive any of those funds. We currently have approximately $2,112,140 available in loan funds to invest in economic development and growth of our business communities, and approximately $1 million in stakeholder investment funds aside from the lending pool. The reason I'm telling you this is that of our offices, we all have similar mandates, but we all go about it very differently and in very unique ways, and we need to harness this power. So some CF offices have a $1.5 million are $1.5 million in size, and some are 40. Some have budgets of $270,000, which is what our operating budget is. It started that in 2009, and it continues to remain at $270,000 that we have in order to operate. That's separate from, of course, our loan funds, but that's what our staff is provided with to be able to operate our organization. Some CF offices are setting up medical clinics, hiring doctors, and healing their communities. Some are making chocolate and selling candy. Some are helping communities with flood and fire disaster operandi, and others are building city halls, community libraries, and renting spaces. Some focus on loans, and others focus on community economic development. But it's up to all of us to make sure we're supporting the growth and direction of our region, and we have the capacity to do more. But we can't do it alone. And so that's where I will be stressing very strongly as I do my annual reports across the region over the next month. Because we are 5 staff, it is very difficult for us to continue to create that awareness and get the message out there as to what we can do and what's available. And so that's why it's so important that I stress this at every time I get an opportunity to come before council. So you're aware of what's available, what we can do, and that you're also conduits out there in the community talking to your residents and your small business owners and supporting the work that we can do and or making those recommendations and referrals for us. There's a number of opportunities in projects and programs that we do that just are not getting in front of the small business owners or the residents, and we aren't always aware of who they are either. So the more we can do collaboratively to get that message out there and take advantage of us, I think the much stronger we're going to be. So the purpose, as most of you know, of the CF program is to help communities develop and implement local solutions to local problems. The program provides financial support to CF organizations in collaboration with our other partners and stakeholders, and can assess their situation and develop strategies to meet the needs to support small and medium-sized enterprises and small social enterprises to undertake appropriate community economic development initiatives. So some of the things that I heard, and I'm sure you may have as well, Al, at EDA this year, that really struck a chord with me is in terms of when we were listening to Invest Alberta, they were told by global investors, we never see you. And I took this message to heart because I see this on every level. And that's the same thing, is people aren't aware of who we are, or we don't have the ability to be in person, in front of each community as much as we would like to. And so again, that's why we rely on you. I think we need to be seen, and with the limited capacity we have to create awareness, we all take the responsibility. So the other thing that I heard loud and clear is investors look for speed. And we really aren't in that realm yet. So I think there's so many things that we can be doing at every level in order to be able to try to pick up some of that speed. What I listen to, whether you believe in the idea, you don't believe in the concept, is Wonder Valley. When I was so surprised to hear the number of years that Greenview has been working on just even setting up this, the ability to approach that kind of an investor. It's been years and millions of dollars. What kind of investor has that time and opportunity to be able to do? So I think the more we can do to get ready and to become investment ready, or even know where the gaps and the challenges exist, whether that's at a municipal level, at a small business level, I think it's time now that we start working on those, and we're going to have to do it collaboratively, I think, in order to be able to get ahead of that. The other thing that we heard strongly was that we need solid BR&E strategies. So I will be telling you a little bit about a project that we've been successful in getting funding for, that we will be moving forward with, but we will need the support of each of our stakeholders in order to be able to utilize the project and get the results that we're looking for. As well as recognizing, and I heard this strong and loud as well, economic development and social development go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. If you have homeless people and people that are worried about food security, those will all impact our ability to attract outside investment. If that's not something that we're set up and prepared to look after, those are the kinds of things that will help make our community stronger. In addition to conducting municipal feasibility studies and ensuring investment readiness. So because we've been hearing this, and these are similar things that we've been hearing for a number of years now, is where we're really trying to make an impact is we are starting an investment attraction and marketing strategy throughout our entire region. So we were successful in receiving funding through the NRED grant, as well as the CF board developed a stakeholder investment committee. So the $1 million that I referred to earlier on is a pot of funding that our office is unique in owning, that belongs to all 10 of our stakeholders that make up Community Futures. Now, that was one of my predecessors, was responsible for a program that started in 2008 and ended in 2015, where they worked with the provincial government to train unemployed people, to upskill them. And as a result of it, when the program was done, the government provided all of the funding and the assets that were remaining in the project. That got to remain with whoever ran it. And so that's where that money came from. Now, legally, we were allowed to keep it as a nonprofit organization, understanding that the money could not go back to any one municipality, but it had to be able to remain and be utilized in the fashion that Community Futures is designed for, based on our mandate to work with community economic development. So when I first came on and became aware of this, every time I would go around and do my annual reviews, if anybody sat on a board that was familiar with it, they would ask me, what are you doing with this money? I got tired of hearing that and being asked that. And so over the past year, the board tasked me to go around. I've met with each of the CAOs and EDOs without the region, talking about what are the common challenges and what are the gaps that exist. My idea at that point in time was hiring a regional EDO. That did not meet with great success because a lot of us are still wanting to work silo. But what they did understand and what they recognized is their ability to create investment attraction, awareness, and marketing. So the idea came forward with hiring a full-time marketing strategist. As I developed the application for the NRED grant, I again continued to speak with the EDOs in the region, and we came up with with the project that we're going to be implementing. I also just went back to the Economic Development Committee because of course you have to come up with matching funds for that. And so it was a challenge to get the board to all agree and see the value of investing an additional $300,000 into this project, but to be able to make it go forward. So some of those investment funds over the last few years have gone into increasing our staffing level capacity to try to even meet more of what we weren't able to do. So that has provided us with a full-time tech advisor support position that continues after we received funding for that initially, and now we've managed to keep him on full-time, as well as to hire a full-time admin staff. So that we can continue to grow our junior staff that exists right now in terms of community economic development. With this grant project that exists is now allowing us funding to hire a full-time 3-year regional marketing and investment attraction strategist. It will provide us with a high enough salary that we can hire somebody that's already experienced in economic development as well as having a marketing background. It's been a bit of a challenge to try to get applicants that are valuable. What we have seen is we have seen one come in recently that I'm very hopeful for, but we'll continue to look at. And so with the program, what we will be doing is this individual will work individually with each of the municipalities that buy into the program. And so with that, we're taking some of the stakeholder funds, of course, which belong to all 10 municipalities. But in addition to that, we asked each municipality for $5,000 in order to provide some skin in the game and understand that they will be receiving value as individuals, but as well as the entire region. 8 of the 10 provided with support when we put through the application. And so we will be invoicing soon that $5,000, which I know Woodlands has already agreed to. Some of the communities, because it was somewhat late in budgeting, we've offered them to be able to spread that out over 3 years. So it's not a huge investment over and above what already exists. But the benefits, I think, that will each municipality will receive are going to be tremendous. So that person will have the opportunity over the course of the 3 years to work individually with each of the municipalities in whatever capacity you need them to do to support, whether that's doing marketing and promotion for you, doing some investment readiness strategy. So that person will be going into each and doing a investment attraction survey to see exactly where each municipality stands in terms of that, and then identifying where those gaps and challenges exist. Along with that, we have funding for whatever kinds of tools and resources may be needed in order to be able to bring that up and increase the investment readiness, as well as working with small businesses within each municipality, trying to identify who they are, where they sit, what kinds of challenges they have, trying to increase expansion. A lot of people are scared by expansion, they don't understand it, so working with that. We're also looking at increasing our business planning readiness as well. I've seen from a number of clients coming through the door, we have some that are ready, some that don't come to us until it's too late. They've already signed on to lease agreements, or they've started business for a year and then find themselves in difficulty, and we can't help them at that point in time.
Go ahead, Councilor Dean.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. As you're working through this section of your program, you said that the staff member that's going to head up this project is going to survey within each municipality.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the survey audience? Is it the business community?
So she'll come in and work with whomever you decide, I'm from admin, in terms of taking a look at, okay, what do you already have in place? One of the biggest things that we know site selectors look at, the very first thing is your website. And I can tell you, I know a number of municipalities have been working quite heavily over the last while in improving their websites. I can't tell you how frustrated I get going each and every single kinds of things I'm looking for, and I'm not an investor. So that will probably be one of the first places. Then taking a look at what do you have for brown space? What do you have for green space? What are any red flags that an investor might come in that maybe doesn't currently exist or exists but needs some improvement? So EDA has also come up with a new program in terms of investment readiness as well that municipalities can work through on their own. We are working with EDA. I'm going to be taking that training right away, but I'm also going to be having this new staff member taking that so that they'll have that tool at their disposal. The other thing that we're working with is local intel. And so we will be creating a regional landing page that will, depending on the number of tools that we use, that will list all of that for each of our municipalities in the entire region. Each municipality will also then be able to take that tool that's been developed and put it on their own webpage or wherever it is that you have that. So the one person I'm looking at, having fingers crossed, is very experienced in this area. So the person will have their own experience in terms of that, and we will be making sure that we're working with other tools and resources that are out there to identify what may exist and what may not exist. So that's one piece of it. The other piece will be, like I said, we're working with a consultant in terms of supporting small business development within the region. So a certain amount of time will be allocated strictly to small businesses, but we will rely on each of our stakeholders to be able to provide us with who are those small businesses within your region? How do we get in front of them? And then the other piece is they will be responsible for working with a regional committee. They will be trying to attract grassroots people throughout the region, hopefully EDOs or somebody similar that will sit on this regional committee, as well as to be able to provide them with direction as to how do we want to promote this region as a whole. Because the truth is we are all within an hour and a half of each other, of all 10 of these stakeholders. And so while Woodlands may be able to attract investment, it's still going to benefit. It's going to benefit Whitecourt, it's going to benefit Barrhead, it's going to benefit Marathon. And how do we promote that idea, that the spin-off business opportunities that exist through supply chains, all kinds of things. So I'm very, very hopeful for this. I think the reason the board, the committee was maybe initially somewhat hesitant was that we have to prove this. And so we will be on an annual basis, and even more so in terms of reporting for the grant, be looking at the measurements and the outcomes that we submitted and anticipate receiving to make sure that they are being met, rather than continuing on a 3-year program if it's not. Just quickly, in addition to that, some of the programs and projects that we are working on, already we're involved in 2 that are provincial across a number of other CF offices, and that's the Small Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery Preparedness. I attended the first regional roundtable session last week in Jasper and was completely blown away by what I learned from it. We know that each municipality looks after their own disaster planning, and there's really not necessarily a role for us in the midst of a disaster or crisis, because residents are number 1 and infrastructure is number 2. But what we're seeing more and more with the increase in disasters, the piece that we're missing is the support to small businesses. As we're forcing small businesses to evacuate or to disruption to business, what kinds of things are we doing to prepare them ahead of time for that? And how are we looking after them when we're re-entering in the recovery process? And so we've been working on this project for over a year now, and we are now just slowly starting to roll out some of that. Our regional roundtable is next Friday, and so we've invited economic developers and other small business support organizations to the table to hear exactly what do they have in place already, where are the gaps, and how can we maybe assist in that. We've got representation coming from Swan Hills, from Fox Creek. We've got small business owners who experience the evacuation process there, as well as a representative from ANC to talk about their cybersecurity attack, because that's another huge disruption to business that's happening more and more. So the more we can learn from those people, these are tools and templates that we're putting together as resources that we can help either with municipalities to share and share back, as well as to support our small businesses going forward. And then the next one, another thing that we're all experiencing, is a number of long-term businesses that are now looking to either success their business to family, whether it's a farm, whether it's a small business, and or to be able to sell them off. A number of our small businesses that have been in operation for a number of years are relying on that exit strategy for their retirement, and many times businesses are being over-evaluated. There's things that aren't being considered. New generations that's coming on and the old generation going out don't necessarily agree on how things are doing. So we're now part of an exit navigator program that we can connect small business owners directly with somebody who will help with the evaluation of their businesses, and as well as for somebody who's planning to sell, make sure they're set up realistically and have that ability to hopefully promote their business throughout the region. And so it's been very successful in BC, same with the disaster recovery program, so we're kind of following suit there in the models that they have. We just promoted a how to buy a business, how to sell a business. We had workshops last week, was the first one, but there will be a number of them going on that we'll be promoting in the area. There's a number of other projects that we're working on, but I'll stop now because I know I'm over time, but I just really want to stress how important it's going to be that you're aware of what we can do and that we are here supporting each other. Yeah, and I'll leave it at that.
I do have a quick question, and it again comes down to the municipal side and kind of working collaboratively with the community futures. On the economic development side or the driver side, you obviously see things more on the financial end or component than we would when we're doing our permitting and stuff. I'm just wondering, as far as with our EDO and our policies and stuff that we have established at the council level, do you see them as kind of more user-friendly or more on the small business scale when people are coming?
If I can be completely frank, I think where the struggles lie, and this might be internal, it might be, is that we share a lot of information, but it doesn't seem to be disseminated. Now, I don't know where it stops. I know Bert and I have had numerous conversations, and I know he has ability that he is able to do, but I feel like sometimes where that information needs to be shared even beyond that doesn't necessarily happen. It certainly doesn't happen quickly if it does. And that's where, I'll be honest, I listened to one of the economic development meetings recently and was somewhat frustrated to hear some of the things that the committee was bringing forward that they were trying to implement when it already exists. We are already here to provide supports in terms of AI training, in terms of any kind of technical training for small businesses to help them become more able to work in terms of their being able to work online, being able to sell online, being able to understand exactly what kinds of tools and services that they need. And so I think sometimes that's where the disconnect is. So much of what we have available is, and I'm not just saying this to Woodlands, it's everywhere, is that you're not able to spread that message out as much as possible. And so I feel like there is opportunity for us to work better collaboratively, but also recognizing that the economic development position itself has roadblocks, I feel. I was instrumental in working on a strategic plan with economic development a few years back, and I don't honestly know if we were really successful in achieving some of that. So I think sometimes it's that, and even with the committee, they've got tremendous ideas, but I don't know if it's being approved quick enough, or the ability to, if I share something, how does it then get shared to your business community from there? How do we get that information out there? And I'm not, I hope this is being taken in the vein that it's intended and not as an insult in any way, shape, or form, but I think that every level only has certain ability. And so where do we?
No, and again, I say my intent is that we govern policy and kind of the decisions that a lot of that goes around, and seeing if there are roadblocks and stuff that us as a council can try to work through. I know Bert is very actively engaged in what he can do in the EDA and or as our EDO in trying to drive stuff, but sometimes we find hindsight on policy, some of the policies and the way that we do business from the council end might get in the way. So trying to see if there's ways that we can try to help things along as well.
I think in terms of the other struggles that I've had is with around growth, and that meaning I've been approached numerous times and approached them as well, and I know that you guys are a member of that as well, and I feel like there's always seems to be a challenge. There always seems to be requests for information, and I share all kinds of things, but then that's sort of where it stops. And yet I feel there would have been tremendous opportunity to be able to support that, grow that as well at the same time, so that we're not all either trying to duplicate, we're not all using same government resources to do the same kind of work. So,
So I got a couple questions here, and then we'll have to.
Through the chair, so I think with regards to what we were talking about, what you brought up with the Economic Development Committee, I mean, would it not make sense then for you to do a presentation for the Economic Development Committee specifically, right? Then you're talking to that committee board directly, as opposed to trying to disseminate through council or through the EDO. And then when you're doing that presentation, it should be focused directly around how Yellowhead Futures and the Economic Development Committee can work together to disseminate that information, because I mean that's the job of the committee, right? Engage the community and bring the community engagement to council. I think that would be a key part of doing that, especially upcoming after this election year. You might have new committee members, new council members. Speaking to them directly as opposed to coming to council as a whole might be more effective to what you're trying to communicate.
absolutely, and I appreciate that, and I love that opportunity if that is an invite. It has been done, and it's been done a few times, and my understanding of how it works is, you know, I come, I present, I make recommendations, I make suggestions, I share the information as to how we can collaborate and what is available, and then committee is to take that to council at that point in time. And I think, yeah, I'm not sure where the disconnect may exist, because I want to spend this money. I want to get it out there. I'm extremely passionate about this, but I'm one person and I can only get that message across so far.
Councillor Dean?
Yeah, through the chair. Thanks for this, Michelle. You know, I think this, you used the term frank, and it's, you know, it is a good discussion. And I think it's brought some awareness to me on, you know, how important that communication piece is. And yes, you know, I've sat through presentations as part of the EDC, but I don't know that we as a committee have identified a spot for your organization to sit within our body of work within our committee, and I think perhaps we need to ask ourselves that question. You know, one of the examples I'll point to are these two NRED grants that are, you know, running at the same time, and I look at the pool of funds that this region is going to access between those two grants, and I think it makes sense to make sure there aren't duplications and there aren't areas that your organization said, hey, we wanted to do this, but we just didn't have the funds for, and for that type of collaborative conversation to take place. So I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I guess, and this is where sometimes and I recognize we have to work in silo sometimes, and this individual will be, you know, required to sign all kinds of confidentiality and maybe even non-disclosure agreements in terms of the individual work, but then the regional work and capacity will be trying to, you know, to bring some of this around. I've worked with Bert for numerous years now, and he brings a ton of knowledge and information to the table. I just feel that sometimes he's even, you know, restricted by what he can and cannot do. And so that's not my place to say. Every EDO works in a different fashion and has a different budget and the abilities that they're able to do. But I wasn't aware of the NRED grant project. I had made it very vocal for the last year to others that we would be working on this project. And so that's where pieces of it, something's, not resonating somewhere, because I don't wanna see us duplicating, or if we're both getting money, then let's work at how we can take the best advantage of it and really, put the money to work and actually have some outcomes and measurements that we can really be proud of and see the growth that we've been able to.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, Michelle,
Thank
for the presentation, and I'm sure we'll have some other discussions around that. We have the two counselors on that committee also. I'm sure they can try to come up with a plan, or maybe we can try to bridge some of that communication.
Awesome, and I would love to be able to come and, spend some time with the committee and kind of share where we're going and see how we can work on it together.
All right, thank you. Councillor Wilhelm?
A motion that Woodlands County Council receives the annual update from CFYE for information.
Thank
With
you.
that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's passed. Okay, we have one more presentation. Just before we get to, we have a housekeeping one we gotta clean up that's gonna roll into your presentation.
Sounds good. I gotta leave at 11 o'clock, so whatever you guys gotta do between then.
Well, this one will be really quick. We had a discussion on this at our GMP. We just need to pass a couple motions on 5.1.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as discussed at GMP and at our Finance Committee meeting, the draft reserve policy is before you. It has the revised scope of the road capital plan that Councillor Wilhelm had brought up at the committee level. It also clarifies the recreational capital reserves that Councillor Dean had sought clarity on in his email to council. So we've updated it accordingly. And the only additional comment on the agenda item is that in addition to the two motions presented, that there's a third motion to rescind the previous financial reserve policies as well.
Councillor Wilhelm?
A motion that council adopt policy F5.202 financial reserves policy as presented.
Thank you. Discussion on the poll or motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Motion 2. Councillor.
I'll move the council reallocates the financial reserves as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That one's passed. And then we need a third motion. Councillor Wilhelm?
Through the chair to administration, can I get a policy number for the?
Yeah, it's 1509, 1510, 1511, 1512, 1513, 1514.
Oh, God.
So if you just say 1509 through 1515, we'll be fine.
Okay. I'll make a motion that council rescinds policy 1509 through to 1515.
That's all I gotta say.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And that brings us to Metrix. Thank you again. Apologize for running behind here.
No, it's okay. Well, I got 10 minutes. What do you guys want me to do?
Just highlights, we've been through these.
Yeah,
This is
do you want
the
me to
fourth
do
year
this? Do you want
now
me just
for
to
me
go
and
through the
council.
audit findings instead
Sure,
of
yeah.
this PowerPoint? I'll just go through this one. Put this one on. I mean, the financial position's pretty good. The new reserve policy's in there. So our findings report here. Yeah, this one?
It's in the PDF.
It's in the agenda.
You guys got this?
Mhm.
Yeah? Okay, so I'll just go over a brief executive summary. Really, the purpose of this report is to promote two-way communication between ourselves, the auditors, and yourselves as counselors. So effectively, as of today's date, we'll be looking to obtain legal confirmations, complete our subsequent event procedures up to today's date, obtain a signed management representation letter, complete our communication to council, which is what we're doing right now, and then obtain evidence of your approval. Once we have all those, we'll be able to issue signed audit financial statements. When it comes to changes from our audit plan to our audit findings, the only changes in relation to materiality is we previously set materiality based on prior year actuals and then adjust those based on the current year reporting. So we use 4% of operating expenses, or roughly 1.1 million, When it comes to materialities, what that means is we're saying that if your revenues or your expenses, say, were to increase or decrease by 1.1 million, we feel that a user of the financial statements, so yourselves as councillors, ratepayers, municipal affairs, may have a different view or outlook on the financial performance of the county. So that's where the materiality comes in, and when we're saying we're given reasonable assurance, we're saying that the financial statements are free from a material misstatement. We don't have any significant difficulties to note to council. The next page is just our engagement team, so myself and Claire are responsible for the services that our firm provided to the county. When it comes to audit results, so these are areas of focus for us where there's potentially risk within the financial statements. So the first one here, management override of control. So management's in a unique position to potentially perpetrate or manipulate the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error. So we use data analytic tools that identify journal entries that may exhibit those characteristics. So journal entries that are, say, posted outside of work hours, posted on the weekend, certain specific number sequences. So we're looking for things that are odd or unique, not necessarily large in nature. So we then test those entries to ensure that there's no manipulation there. So we didn't have any significant findings, where we do have some control deficiencies that we noted later on in our report. When it comes to salaries, wages, and benefits, risk here is that employees are potentially being paid the incorrect rate. So we perform procedures over that. We have additional items in our control environment, but we did not identify any other significant findings. The next page, cash and cash equivalents. So here, again, we have a few more control deficiencies later on, but we want to make sure that the cash and investment balances are accurate at year end. So sending third-party confirmations, as well as reconciling significant items there. When it comes to tangible capital assets, so we want to make sure that those have been correctly reported as well. So making sure that there's no items that are expense that should be capital, amortization's correct, gain loss as well as no impairment. So we did identify 3 unrecorded adjustments in related to that, which is later on in our report as well. On the next page here, we discuss, I think, our misstatements. So we had made 18 audit adjustments. Those are the effect of them on the financial statements. So obviously, an increase your annual surplus of about $5 million in relation to the changes that we made. Assets increased 1.8 million as well as the accumulated surplus. When it comes to unrecorded misstatements, so these are when we talked about materiality being 1.1 million. These are adjustments that are not reflected in the financial statements, and then we don't feel that they would change anyone's opinion, as they're well below the materiality threshold there. So those adjustments would include items related to your amortization of your assets, amortization of assets with incorrect full useful life, and as well as adjustment to accumulate amortization. So those are entries that are not posted. The next page here is our control environment and other observations. So here we have some updates to some findings from last year, as well as some additional ones. So when it comes to internal controls, payroll system access, so this was indication of different levels have an administrative level. So we noted that the administrative level had been reduced to 1 employee, and non-payroll management personnel no longer have administrative level access. So we consider that to be resolved. When it comes to segregation of duties for payroll and human resources, so there was no change to this, as the role is still jointly shared there, so we continue to provide the same recommendation. On the next page, when it comes to segregation of duties of AP and AR, we noted that personnel had their access changed so that there were compensating controls in place, so we consider that risk to be resolved as well. Bank reconciliations last year, so we had just discussed here about delays in completing and reviewing of that. So we continue to note kind of the same year over year when it comes to that. We continue to recommend that bank reconciliations be reviewed more frequently to ensure that nothing is missing when it comes to transactions out of the bank. When it comes to manual journal entries, so we noted no change in the controls implemented over manual journal entries as well. So making sure that manual journal entries are being reviewed, and approved before being posted. So furthermore, our testing of those, we found that out of the 8 entries that we tested, 2 lacked clear evidence of approval. to ensure accountability and maintain proper internal controls. All journal entries should be clearly signed and dated by the preparer and the reviewer, so we continue to have that comment in here as well. On the next page here, we talk about significant qualitative aspects of accounting policies. We did have a few new accounting policies this year that were adopted in relation to revenue, intangible assets, and public-private partnerships, so there was no effect on the county's financial statement with those new standards. When it comes to your accounting estimates, we feel your estimates are in line with the best information available, so your allowance for doubtful accounts, valuation of tangible capital assets, so amortization there, as well as your asset retirement obligations. We'll issue a management letter in relation to non-significant items that we would have noted while performing our work. When it comes to other matters, this comment here is from prior years, but just in relation to your regional waste authority, we do know that the town does the kind of the accounting for that, but it is this joint, controlled entity, and probably should have a separate financial statement, in which case the county will be able to consolidate its proportional ownership of the authority into their statement. So that's still a recommendation there as well. And then a couple of the ones here, so vacation payable entitlement. So while performing work there, we did notice that there were employees that exceed their allowable threshold when it comes to vacation pay there. So we do recommend, working with those employees. Obviously, you want to make sure that a big liability doesn't exist for the county later upon any of those employees leaving. So just to be mindful of that. And then another one here was in relation to payroll grid changes. So while performing our payroll work here, we did notice that there was a change. It didn't affect anyone's pay, and then it was corrected and I think changed back. So that was kind of caught there. So just to note that one as well. When it comes to our appendices, so Appendix 1, just a required communication of our independence, that we do not hold a financial interest position, have a personal business relationship or economic dependence on the county. Appendix 2 is our management representation letter that will get signed. And then Appendix 3 is new and revised accounting standards coming out for December 31, 2027. So those standards will change your financial statement presentation. You'll see this change of your statement of financial position. You'll see your non-financial assets kind of move up underneath your financial asset positions. You'll have total assets, and then you'll have liabilities and net assets, and then some other conceptual framework changes there. So again, that's a few years away, but that is coming from the standards. So that's kind of it for our audit findings report. I guess if anybody has any questions, I could definitely take them.
Councillor Dean?
Yeah, in the interest of time, the manual journal entry, is that a significant situation where we need to make sure that this gets corrected ASAP?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't note any, like the entries that we were testing, we didn't notice any, irregularities or anything like that, but it's just a better control that, someone's kind of posting the entry, someone's reviewing it, so that there is that two people looking at it, as opposed to just one person going in and just making entries that they would like to the financial reporting, can definitely lead to some issues there. So definitely would like to see a little more segregation of the duties there, and just more evidence of the review and approval, so we can make sure it's being done.
I think Mr. World's got a follow-up.
Thank you, Reeve. So one of the things we've had some discussions on this issue with Claire, the auditor, and the two batches that she's talking about that they found, we've now found the batches that have approvals on them. The issue they have now is with the corporate services director entering journal entries and having them approved by the finance manager and applied. And if I can't do journal entries, I don't know how we're going to get all the work done. So we have a little bit of disagreement on that factor, but almost all my journal entries that I enter, I sent to Lan, she reviewed, signed it off, and applied them. I did not do anything on my own. So we have implemented that. There may be a few batches that maybe with small batches that didn't get approved, but Lan has came up with most of the backup to support that we have been doing that.
Okay.
Councillor Wallin?
So I got two items. One I'll direct to administration, or the CAO, I guess. With regards to the vacation pay entitlements, will you be working with staff to try to get them to work on getting this pretty significant amount of money taken care of?
Through the chair, yes, I asked for the list of the names, and it'll be a situation of let's use it, or we can assign leave in accordance with policies as necessary.
And then through the chair to the auditor, with regards to the payroll grid changes, you didn't really say a date here, you just said partway through the year. Is there any indication of at what point this occurred through the middle of the year? This is kind of interesting to hear about.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe people, do you know when the, roughly, was it month?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm. So I don't know the exact date, so I talked to our HR coordinator this morning, and she said it was a decision made by the CAO at the time, and then afterwards she realized that you had to go to council, and so she reversed it. So nobody was ever paid under that new grid. And it was related to changing the grid for hiring potential because he thought the grid was too low, but it still has to go to council. So she reversed it, and we have not, and nobody was paid under that new level.
Yeah, we confirmed that there was no payment on that as well.
Time for possibly one more year.
Oh, yeah, you can keep going, I can go a bit past.
Yeah, just to that end, I recall that discussion at council where, the grid, I think the assumption was that this was gonna happen, and then council decided to just put the brakes on it for a bit, so.
One question I do have when you're talking about incorrect pay rates based off of contracts or employee contracts, was that it was just kind of in our list of, findings. Is that something just administratively, I guess, where we just due to extra overtime and whatever, or is it something we were?
My understanding was it was related to job offers. That being said, the grid will be reviewed this year and brought back for a re-review. But that was my understanding in relation to that note. It was all about the offer, as Andrew indicated, that to get a certain candidate, we thought we may have to go beyond the grid. We ultimately didn't have to, so there was no financial aspect. I think it's just a risk of the potential that our CAO at the time may have attempted to try and get the right talent at the wrong cost, unfortunately. But we've caught ourselves and nothing actually happened of it. So I think it's just good to note, and it's a good discussion. And
Anything else from council? Just checking, Councillor Burrows, do you have any comments, questions?
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually got all my questions answered in the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dean?
So I'd move that council approves the 2024 audit findings report and the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Again,
Sorry.
apologize for the waste of your today.
No, it's okay.
And if council wouldn't mind, if we can take a 10-minute break here. All right, let me know when we're ready. Okay, it's 10 after, we're back, just checking, Councilor Burrows, are you back with us?
Yep, just finding my mute button. I'm here.
Okay, no, we're just making sure we still have quorum.
No, I didn't realize it was so close.
Let's go back to 5.2, bylaw 624/25, council committee bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This had been discussed previously at the GMP committee. As far as we're concerned, we're recommending that it be approved as presented for all three readings. I think the key here too is we did work, I got some really prompt responses from the town of Whitecourt, so I gotta acknowledge that. After our committee meeting, I asked to see theirs and to confirm that their intent was the same as ours with the ICF liaison versus the ICF committees. We made sure that those now both subsequently match. By passing this bylaw, it will remove the legal gray area on which one we're meeting on by properly establishing both committees as independent. And it also, as previously mentioned at the GMP, it also puts in criteria ad hoc committees and expiry dates, so there's no longer questions on whether or not a committee still exists if it's a one-off situation. Recognizing that depending if and when Bill 50 gets updated, there may be some time to reevaluate this in the near future. That being said, the date, assuming how it is being implemented, we should remain compliant with that going forward as well, but we'd recommend that it gets all three readings today if it pleases council.
Thank you, Councilor Dean.
Thanks through the chair. I'd be happy to make the first motion to give a first reading, but I just want to make another comment. I know you've heard me say this before, but specifically with respect to the Airport Advisory Committee, I had sent notes out that, my opinion right now is that committee should be held at the call of the chair, pending council having an opportunity to vet and come up with a position on how we want to move forward with the airport. I'm not suggesting we need to make a change, but I just want to say again that I really feel strongly that we need to have that meeting amongst council only to discuss a path forward with the airport. So saying that, I would move that council gives first reading to bylaw 625/25 council committees bylaw.
Question I have just for clarification before we vote on this motion. 5.2 says bylaw 624/25, the motion says 625/25, and in the reading in the package, it's bylaw number 624/25. So I'm just, for clarity, are we voting on 624/25 or 625/25?
It would be 624/25.
Okay, so I'll amend that motion.
Thank you, Councillor. So a motion for first reading to bylaw 624/25. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
First motion is passed. If we want to continue. We want to give second reading. Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 625/25 council committees bylaw.
24.
Sorry, 24.
Second reading for bylaw 624/25. Discussion on the motion. Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's
In favor.
carried. If we get unanimous, we can carry to third reading. I can get that motion. Councillor Burrows.
I will make the motion that council give unanimous consent to proceed to third reading for bylaw 624/25 council committees bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? And that takes us, Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 624/25.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? And that's
In favor.
5.3, we have bylaw 625/25, procedure bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's where the confusion came in, as this is the 625 one. So this is our procedure bylaw. There have been some instances to date where our actual practices did not necessarily reflect what our procedural bylaw had indicated. So the goal with these changes is, one, to correct the bylaw to reflect the processes that we have been properly using, but also to provide some greater flexibility to council if and when they need it. I think the major changes that are worth noting is it removes the meeting dates and times from council. You can make those at organizational meeting or whenever you want, rather than having the set date that it must be this date. And then we also have the aspect that the terms of references to the committees have now been removed. Those are put in within the proper committee bylaw. We made all the other changes as referenced by the GMP. We have moved into this bylaw the public hearing procedures because that is a formal procedure in relation to council. So to us, it makes sense that it's incorporated within the procedural bylaw. I think the key changes where it says CAO, that includes my designate. I know at the GMP meeting that was highlighted of, well, what does that mean? The long-term plan administratively is to draft a procedure or a memo to staff to know who has been designated each duty to hold ourselves accountable. But the recognition is that the MGA for the most part says the CAO is responsible for almost everything, and that's not a realistic expectation. It's about sharing the workload appropriately, and that's where we'll do it as needed. Overall, we are recommending that 625 receive 3 readings today.
Thank you. Discussion on that from council? Councilor Dean?
Just a question, can you provide clarity over the, between the terms closed meeting and committee of the whole?
Certainly. If I may, through the chair, just from the definition, or?
Sure, definition is fine.
Okay, so closed meeting is not in a bylaw, so would you just like my interpretation of closed meeting, or?
Well, I guess just from a functional point of view, you know, over the past few years, when we went into, I call it in camera, the section of the agenda was called Committee of the Whole.
Yep.
And I know there was some discussion from our legislative assistant that the terminology was incorrect. So I see Committee of the Whole here, and I think it means in camera.
Okay, so if I may, through the chair, so technically the legislation changed a couple years back where in camera was switched to closed session. So closed session is where there's a piece of item before council that will be discussed without the public because it's protected under one of the privacy aspects of it. Now, it does not necessarily need to be an item that affects council as a whole. It could be a personnel issue or something like that where not all of council is needed. It could just be that it's the Reeve and myself as an example, or something along those lines. Committee of the whole is a separate type of committee, which is all of council. It shouldn't be treated as a council meeting from a procedural aspect. Council meetings and committee meetings do need to be properly advertised to ensure that the public can attend. Committee of the whole is an attempt to allow a less formal discussion to occur than a council meeting. Previously, I would say that GMP, from what I've heard with my discussions with some of council, was looked at as the committee of the whole because all of council just happens to be on that committee to discuss items that require thorough discussion beyond just a council meeting. And so with the structure change in the committee bylaw, we've clearly defined the scope of the GMP. And there is still the option for committee of the whole meetings should council want to, but by no means should that be designated as a closed session or associated with in camera, as you're mentioning, because in camera is very specific to the approximately 20 clauses within the FOIP legislation that say these are things that can be discussed privately, whether they be private business matters, personal or personnel issues, legal issues, depending on the scope and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't recommend you associate them to as the same thing because they are not in any way.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Not seeing any. If Councillor Wilhelm?
I'll motion that council gives first reading to bylaw 625/25 procedure bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
It's passed. Senator moves us to second reading. Councillor Dean?
To move that council give second reading to bylaw 625/25 procedure bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Again, call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's carried. Brings us to our next vote for unanimous consent. Councillor Wilhelm?
I'll motion that council give unanimous consent to proceed to third reading for bylaw 625/25 procedure bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And that's passed. Yeah, we can move to third and final reading.
John, want to get in on the action?
Councillor Burrows, you want to make a motion on her?
Yeah, I was just looking at whether or not we had to rescind the previous one or not. Yeah, I'll make a motion that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 625/25.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried.
In favor.
And administration, just on that housekeeping bit, do we need to rescind a previous motion?
I believe the clause is within the bylaw that rescinds it upon third reading. So I don't believe we need a motion.
Okay. Moving on then. 9.1, 2025 final operating capital budget. Whoa.
Thank you, Reeve. So you'll find the presentation under the operating plan, RFD. For some reason, I got attached to that RFD, so if you want to just get the presentation, it's on that, it's attached to that RFD. And I'll go through the presentation. So the RFD, won't spend much time on the RFD portion of the because all the numbers are included in the presentation, so I thought I'd just go directly to the presentation if that's okay with council. So after we've had some discussions with council and after our last discussions, here's some of the things that are included in the budget for 2025, the final budget. So municipal property tax revenue of $25.7 million, and that's an increase by 2.9% over 2024 actual revenue. That's based on Alberta CPI for the year of 2024. Total property tax revenue is $32.5 million, and that's increased by 4.6% over 2024 actuals. And the majority of that difference is the school requisition increase of 12.6%. Other revenues increased over 2024, and then expenditures increased compared to 2024 of 4.94% increase. This included 3.72% of new initiatives. I will point out that I have changed the budget to reflect that amortization is in department costs. The interim budget amortization was not included, it was included as a capital item, but we record those costs to our operating budget. It's part of a department's costs, and so those are now in the department section for the operating budget. The budget includes funding for capital of about $11.36 million. We added a few additional items that we'll talk about in a few minutes. In terms of financing those projects, we have kind of a mixed revenue source. We've used reserves, we've used property taxes, we've used grants, and we've used debt. So we've kind of used all four of our reserve or revenue options for funding capital in 2025. So the amendments from the interim budget, so this first slide is basically no impact. So we've had a few adjustments that we had to make. The carry forwards that were booked in the interim budget were based on an estimate, and I had to reflect the actual carry forward amount. So I've adjusted those. That impacts a revenue and an expense, so it's no financial impact to the county. We had some reallocations in fire, in Goose Lake Fire and Regional Operations, as they had some items that we call attractive items, but they're basically small equipment coded to contracted repairs and to general supplies, so we now have moved those budgets. We moved the policing costs from intermunicipal agreements to a code called policing requisition. I know we're not supposed to use the word requisition, but that's what it is in our GL right now. That won't be the way we'll reflect it on our bylaw, but because we're not allowed to do that.
Councilor Burrows, I heard you speaking there. You got a question?
I'm sorry, I was just mumbling to myself. I thought my mic was off. I was reaffirming that, yes, it's a requisition, even though it's not a requisition.
No worries. You had the screen minimized here. Just couldn't see it. Want to make sure.
No, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then after I reviewed the 2025 transactions versus the budget, I discovered that we were missing a number of wage budgets. So all of our programs and a lot of our departments have wages distributed across them because we actually code to those departments. And all those costs were in administrative budgets. So I've fixed all those wage codings. But that, again, total wages is fine, it's the same number, but just, it's now in all the separate budgets so that we don't see an expense where there's no budget. So I had to fix about 160 GLs to reflect benefits and wages. And then the next slide is our amendments from the interim budget that do have a financial impact. So we'll go through those individually. There's 20 items that we want to just discuss with council. You're probably aware of some of them already. So on the municipal taxation side, we adjusted taxation to reflect 2.9% based on our final assessment for 2024, or final July 2024 assessments. The school rec, you can see the 12.6% increase from the interim budget, so it's slightly over $6 million. The other requisitions actually went down slightly, so it's just the school impacts. We had $100,000 savings in our culvert capital as Jeff got favorable tender pricing, so we reduced the budget by that amount. We had to top up council training. We didn't have enough money in the budget to meet the 7 councilors by $15,000 each. That's supposed to be in the budget. So we've adjusted that to balance to the $105,000 under 2 account codes, training and education, and membership fees and conferences. So that was an oversight. It should have been to 105 right at the beginning. Jeff also removed 2 fire trucks from the budget. They're going to be delayed. And we used internal trucks, so that saved us about $160,000 in capital. We're suggesting adding 2 new positions, effective basically June 1st. GIS technology coordinator for our asset management side of the business. We're finding it's quite a struggle in terms of getting the work done without having somebody with GIS experience and the ability to actually produce maps themselves instead of having to go to Catalyst and wait for a period of time so they can run them for us. We want to add back the building management coordinator that was removed from the budget. Potentially, that position may morph into some administration staff on the asset management side. We're struggling with how we're going to implement work orders without a designated person assigned to manage work orders for us. We don't have anybody at this point in time that can manage the work orders for our asset management system. We need somebody responsible for the data entry of it and managing it. So that's something that Matthew will be looking at in the next little while. The Woodlands County Library Board, the budget ended up not changing from the previous year, so we saved $11,000 from the interim budget. The new employees, the computers were not budgeted for, so we discovered that when Nikita went to buy a computer for recreation staff, we didn't have any funds, so we've put that back in the budget. That's for a surface and a docking station. Item number 10 on the next page is ICF studies. Matthew considers the amount of money we have in there just not sufficient to do the work we need to do for our ICF review, so he's asking for additional funds of $300,000. Vehicle fuel, that was just a transcription error. It should have been a $750,000 budget in the first place. Jeff has asked for an additional $150,000 for the Fort Assiniboine water treatment upgrade. He's determined that all the electrical system actually needs to be upgraded, so he needs additional $150,000 to do that work. We did have one miscarry forward. I thought the project was complete. It's for security at the fire halls. They had paid half the bill and not the full bill, so I have to add back in that carry forward. We did have $6,000 that the CAO approved from our AFRAC project, so there was $6,000 that we weren't going to spend, and so we do have $6,000 to offset that, so it's not quite as impactful. We're adding a Centeg trailer purchase for $70,000. That's an office trailer for the recreation staff. So I believe, Heather, that's going to be 5 people in there, 5 offices?
Yep, well, not 5 offices, but I think 2, we talked about 2 offices and then a space for the rest.
So that's going to be, I think, attached to the cold storage building? Is that where it's going to go?
It'll be mobile on wheels yes, so it'll be attached to cold storage just out back.
But it will be, yeah, it will be on wheels, so it can be moved. We've had an increase in the town of Whitecourt ICF costs. I think council's aware of that. A 22% increase. So that number's, so I budgeted that number. It's a little bit different. It looks a little different here because Denisha budgeted the fire ICF in the fire department. So it looks like the fire department's kind of mixed into there. So the town did go up significantly from our 2024 actual. We actually budgeted an increase, but from our actual 2024, it was a 22% increase. We had some additional funds for the office building development here on site. Jeff asked for $40,000 in additional funding. We've added a pre-owned dozer. So Matthew asked Jeff to come up with some additional capital that might fit, given that we had such good surplus. And the next 2 items were added. And Jeff feels like he can reduce contracted services if that work can be done internally. And that's a pre-owned unit, not a brand new one. And then engineering at the Blue Ridge Lagoon enlargement, so he advanced that $20,000 from the next year. So my understanding is that we're at 94% capacity, so that has to be enlarged fairly quickly. It's a fairly immediate concern. And that will also impact potentially our ARO for that lagoon. And then we added $54,000 to our ERP and asset management implementation. That's for third-party consulting. We've hired Cascadia Consulting. We've had them on board for, I think, 2 months now, and they're proving to be invaluable. They are the middlemen between the 2 vendors and ensuring that we have all the architecture in place so that we have integrations to the 2 systems and making sure that the 2 companies are talking to each other. We were really struggling with that, not having that role. And so we're going to add them on for, I think that's another 3 months. And so we're moving along at the implementation. Asset management's a little bit further ahead than the ERP, but the ERP is already a complete system that we know how it works. So we're going to be in good shape on the ERP side too, because it's already using a system that's being used, and we'll have less problems implementing than asset management. And then we also added 4 high school students. I budgeted for them in recreation, but I don't think we've decided where they're actually going yet, but that's where their budget is, recreation. So the net impact is $224,000 increased capital from operations. We have increased revenue of $812,748,000, and then increased expenses of $1.36 million. So the net operations increase is approximately $778,000, and we're recommending taking that basically out of last year's surplus. My plan would be to not make any recording of that entry. It would be, just given the history of the county, we tended to have some surplus items, wages that get delayed, some things that just don't get expended. So I have a feeling that our $770,000 deficit may turn into zero at the end of the year potentially. We don't know, but just based on history, we've always kind of had that, that $1 million extra. Now, we were budgeting surpluses in the past. We're not budgeting a surplus this year. So we're actually budgeting for this, basically, you could call it a deficit, but it's coming out of our unrestricted surplus that we left in after our reserve entries. So we still have about $3.1 million in unrestricted surplus. So that's funds that you use to cover a few deficits, as if you have one, you can cover that with those funds. But again, I expect, based on just the history with the county, that I would expect we would come in probably close to a balanced budget at the end of the year. That would be my view to council. The operating budget, I didn't provide all the details that you saw in the interim budget because you've already seen it. This just includes the changes, and I did provide you with a detailed budget. I use the Bellamy system that we have to do the budget. I did not use the Excel spreadsheet that was developed. Just to be honest with you, it was beyond my Excel ability I'm not an expert on Excel, and this was a very well done file, but beyond my ability to use it. So I used our system, our budget system in Bellamy. So that's where these numbers have already been input, and that's why I can print you a budget today. Big changes, interest income. We're probably going to see a drop of about $300,000 in interest income, mostly just due to interest rates. Rates have dropped significantly, though our bank balance is probably going to be a bit higher. We already have our debenture funding in the bank, so we've been sitting on quite a large balance right now in the bank, and that'll be depleted over the next 6 or 7 months. So our bank balance is quite high right now. Administration, it looks like we're down by $400,000, but that's really, we moved the conditional grants for the LGFF and the CFBF to infrastructure. Makes more sense to be in infrastructure, given that we use those funds for infrastructure than for administration. And we did not budget a surplus this year for administration, so that's why that offset by about $1.3 million. Disaster services, we did budget for some revenue from the DRP for 2023. $700,000 was the estimate, and we feel that probably might be a much larger number, but we don't know for sure on how much work's going to be done, and that's ongoing, the work from the 2023 floods. And then again, the roads and streets, that's strictly because we moved the capital grants to infrastructure, and then they had less transfers from reserves as an offset. And then the other departments are pretty much the same. Economic development is a little bit higher because they had a large grant coming in this year for $190,000.
Councilor Dean?
Just one clarification, if I may, with respect to airport operations. Revenues are being reduced from almost $300K to $220. What accounts for that?
That's a good question. I'll tell you in the detailed budget. I think it's probably transfers grants, but it'll be in the detailed budget.
Sorry.
No, it's a good question. Sorry, it's revenues. Infrastructure budget. Okay, here we go. Airport. The expenses again, not the revenues. Okay, so airport operations, it's down 78,686, and that was a capital grant that we had last year for cleaning. Do you remember when they had some money to clean up the brush? And council turned that down. They said, no, keep the money in reserves. So that was in our revenue last year, but we put that back into reserves. So those funds are still sitting in reserves. Council thought those funds could be spent better on another project than clearing the brush at the airport. So those are in reserve still, so that's the decrease in revenue for the airport.
Thank you.
On the expenditure side, you'll notice general government, that's our allowance for doubtful accounts. Historically, we've recorded that in administration, but we've broken it out. It's $500,000 lower than last year, so we're expecting, based on our allowance that we've already set up, that we don't need those extra funds to set up other allowances for the year, because we set up about $800,000 of allowances in 2024. So what that means is we've taken that revenue off our books. We haven't written it off, but we've taken it off our books. And then what we'll need to do is, for the ones that we're not going to collect, we're going to bring them to council to write them off, and then we can apply for our school taxes back under the PERC program. It's the only way we can get our school taxes back is if we write them off. And so I did report to our tax arrears to the province at the end of March, or in April, but for the end of March. So they are aware of our balances of all our outstanding taxes. And it's really just a few vendors that are our problem, with 3 or 4 vendors or ratepayers. So we are watching closely, especially with the price of natural gas and oil starting to go down. It's a little bit of a concern. Administrative services, again, we removed allowance for doubtful accounts from that account code, and we didn't budget a surplus in there. Safety, we've had increased training and contracted costs, so they have about $37,000 they've increased the training budget to do increased training for managers and supervisors. Intermunicipal sharing, you can see it's a small increase technically over the budget last year, but the other portion is sitting in fire, about $386,000. So when you take the two in comparison, we got a 22% increase in intermunicipal sharing. Fire protection, a significant increase in the costs. ICF is one issue there, was about, like I said, $368,000. We have a fire engine in there for $950,000 for Anselmo. So that's a big chunk of the difference.
I can just hold you for a second there. Just in regards to the ICF and then the fire portion. So we're reporting those separately?
That's how it was set up in the interim budget, and I did not change it. So historically, we used to report the ICF in recreation, fire, patrol services, and then administration, and put it out to the departments that it was affected. And then when the recovery plan happened, it was just changed to administration. And when we were just accruing that same amount every year, 2.8 million, 2.8 million, the previous director broke out the fire this year, but did not break out the other departments, and I did not change that. It's still in fire. But overall, the total ICF is still at $2.8 million, roughly, that the town has given us for their 2025 budget. Emergency measures,
Sorry, Mr. World.
Just a point of clarification, is that something council prefers? Recognizing we have our constraints with our budget now, there isn't anything to say we can't bring an amended one back for you later that breaks it down in a mechanism that you'd prefer, or even go for 2026.
For me, just a clarification on this, because last discussions we had, I believe we were talking our ICF was around 2.4, and then we take a look at the numbers here over 2.7. So that was just making sure that whatever we're doing for conversation on the numbers when we're talking about the ICF is congruent, and we at least using the same numbers.
Yeah, our 2024 actuals were approximately 2.4 million. We've not paid the town yet, we're waiting for the final invoice. But we've received our 2025 budget estimates, and it's over 2.8 million. So we received that from the town. And so we know what our budget is based on that invoice, or that estimate. So that's what's in here. Has it been approved by a payment yet? No, it's just, they've given us their estimate, and we provided them our estimate for the recreation costs in the county. This is one of our discussion points we'll be having on Friday, is that these are things that should be happening, in the previous year, not in the year of. But historically, just because we weren't having any shared invoices, we didn't see an invoice for 2020 to 2023 until January, right, of this year. So we hadn't seen an invoice. So we'll have to set up a mechanism so that we share our budgets much earlier so that we can get it in the interim budget. And so that's our plan, is to have those discussions in advance, and then we have a better understanding of their capital in advance of them just submitting capital to us, and vice versa. So that is part of our meeting on Friday, is to try and set up some kind of a mechanism for making sure we do this well in advance of the budget.
Thank you.
The emergency measures budget is up, and that was because we actually got some funds from the Jasper Fire. Our fire department got some funds from the Jasper Fire, and they asked us to carry that forward so they could use for other equipment in 2025. So that's where we budgeted for them. So that's why the budget's up there. It's actually funded by a revenue on the other side. Common services, fairly flat. You can see infrastructure's not changed very much. Airport's down a little bit. Water supply distribution's up by about 340,000, and that's due to capital. Solid waste is up by quite a bit, and that's also due to capital, about $164,000 in capital. Municipal planning is up 400,000, and that's a wage distribution problem we had in the interim budget. Those were included in recreation and not in municipal planning. And so I've matched up to where the payroll is actually being coded in our payroll system. So we've matched up all the coding from our payroll system to match our budget. So there should be no material variances in wages, other than if they have staff vacancies. Economic development is up, and that's because of a grant of $190,000. Rec boards, that's capital grants are up quite a bit for the rec boards. And library cultural programs, that's up also due to capital grants. And then you can see the school requisition is up significantly, and that's out of our control, of course. We don't have a contingency reserve this year for appeals. There may be a little bit of a risk there. I do think we have one appeal that potentially could cost us some money, but it's not as large as the one we had pending 2023 and 2024. That was significant.
Councilor Wilhelm.
Through the chair to administration, so we don't have a contingency reserve, but is it covered by one of our other reserves now?
Yes, through the chair to Councilor Wilhelm. We do have other reserves that we could use to cover that, right? We have tax stabilization reserve. Yeah. We have numerous, that's the one I would use to buffer anything like that. Okay. You're going to see in the 5-year operating plan that I use the tax stabilization reserve as kind of our mechanism to balance our operating budget more reasonably each year, based on the fact that capital changes so drastically in our 5-year plan. So we're not going 5% this year, 2% this year. I've used the property tax stabilization reserve to do exactly that, stabilize the increase to the same amount kind of over time.
Okay.
And then you'll see the amortization is off the bottom, so I have included that in operating expenditures. That's in all the departments. It's an important part of the cost of doing business for our departments, but it's non-cash, so we don't have to go after the ratepayer for it every year. We charge the ratepayer for the capital that we do every year. So it's a non-cash item, but it is reflected in our operating budget. On the next page, you'll see our new initiatives. This is a similar slide that you saw In the interim budget, the change here is that we've added the 2 7-month positions. One was in the old listing, but was removed at the interim budget, and we've added it back in, and the GIS coordinator is a new position. And they'd be effective, like I say, I think we hope June 1st if we get those positions approved by council. And so the new initiatives included in the operating budget, the only change on this list is the three items, the 2 positions and the 4 high school student positions. And so the net new initiatives that we've asking council to approve are $1.4 million, and that's about $198,000 is new money from the interim budget. And then on the next slide, you'll see our full-time positions. I've added in the 2 new positions as if they're full-time positions, but they'll only be for 7 months this year, but that would move our staffing levels to 65 employees. And that's 8 over our 2024 number of positions that we had in the budget. So a significant increase in manpower. The capital budget, again, it hasn't changed drastically, so I'm really showing you what you saw in December. The capital list was rated based on these 3 categories. And I've made any changes from the interim budget are highlighted in red in the capital plan. So on page 1, you'll see I moved the East Mountain Road and West Mountain Road into 2025 and took them out of carry forward because they're not a carry forward project, they're a deferred project. We did the debenture in 2025, so it's a 2025 project. We got our funds in March, so we held off on the debenture, so that's not a really carry forward, it's more of a deferral. Culvert replacements, there's the $100,000 that Jeff saved. On page 2 of the capital report, you'll see we added $40,000 to the admin building office development. We added in the Centake trailer purchase for our recreation staff. We added $54,000 into our ERP for the consultant. We added $150,000 into the Fort Water treatment plant to do the complete electrical upgrade. And we moved $20,000 of the Blue Ridge Lagoon enlargement engineering from 26 to 25. And those were the changes. They added up to $224,000 in additional capital. And so that's our capital list for 2025, and it also includes our 5-year plan, but we'll go through that in a separate RFD. And then I've provided also for council the detailed budget. That'll be going on our website. It's not in the package, so we will be putting it on our website with parts of our presentation for the public to see. And we've done it at a detailed level, but I made sure that any wage that we'd have that might stick out for a department that has few employees, I made sure that's been grouped in another department so that the wage can't be determined for one individual. I mean, I'm not really concerned about that necessarily because I don't know why somebody would want to do that, but it's just to be fair to everybody at the county that works here. They probably shouldn't have their wage sticking out in a budget item. So they won't stick out that way. They've been moved to another department. And so that's the presentation, and we would ask that council approve our 2025 operating, or adopt our 2025 operating capital budget as presented. And of course, I'd be glad to take any questions you may have, or any issues you may have with our new initiatives.
Question I actually have, and I'm not sure if this was just a misprint when we originally budgeted or if something was taken out. The Woodlands Library Board, I know we typically is $224,000 year over year. This last year, Heather can probably speak to also, we added extra funds, part of the kind of more community engagement around programming and stuff. So I'm just making sure that if we had 235 in the operating budget and we're going back to 224, that other, like, is that 235, that extra 9,000, was that what that programming fund was that we're taking out? I don't want to lose money that was put towards.
Through the chair to the Reeve. So no, that's their budget that they have getting funds from the county for just regular annual fee. So we got their budget, and their budget for that was just $224,000. The other programming is a separate line item in the budget. And I can verify that for you just by
So it is
going to the line item.
It's just in another GL. Sorry, through the chair, to the chair. That money is what the library board, that's the budget they submit to us. Then that other $40,000 is in programming. So it's for programming to the library board, but it's different than your actual operating budget that you submit.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't losing that, because I know it's been really good for the community. Any other questions we have right now? Councilor Dean?
So if there's no other questions, I'd move that council adopts the 2025 operating and capital budget as presented.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on that motion, sorry. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And
In
that's
favor.
moved. 9.2, 2025 5-year capital plan.
Thank you, Reed. So this one, you might see the document in there twice. I think it was updated twice, but this is the exact same document that we just looked at in the operating capital budget. I don't know if Jeff wants to speak to anything in his 2025 plan. So one of the things that we've done is Jeff's indicated that we did not inflate these numbers for inflation. I had a conversation with Jeff, and he feels that just the way that he's done the numbers, they're high level estimates anyways, and they probably include taking into consideration that the costs are going to go up over time. So we haven't really done just an inflation factor on it. You can see the drop off in 2030, and that caused me some grief in doing the 5-year operating plan, because we see capital go from 9 million, 6 million, 5, 11, 7, down to 3.5. Now, is that going to be the final plan? Probably not. It's going to be tweaked, and we're going to add new projects. But that's why during the operating plan development, I made sure I used property tax stabilization to smooth that out. It's just a plan at this point in time, and 2030 really sticks out at this point as being a very small capital number.
Councilor Dean?
Through the chair to administration, in a similar vein, I know we've discussed this at length, and we're going to adopt this 5-year capital plan, but I believe for next year's budgeting discussions, we should consider adding money to the subdivision roads. We have a very densely populated areas where many of our residents are on those roads, and I just don't think $650 or $627,000 is going to cut it going forward, but we're fine for this year.
Thank to the chair, to Councilor Dean. I'll note this for John. I'm sure Jeff's noted it for the next year's development of the budget, so we'll try to capture that.
Councilor Wilhelm, you had a question there too?
No, never mind. Okay.
So if there's no further questions, I would ask council to adopt the 2025 5-year capital plan as presented.
Do you have any further questions on the capital plan? Councilor Wilhelm?
I'll motion that council adopts the 2025 5-year capital plan as presented.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. 9.3, 2025 5-year operating plan.
So through the briefing council, thank you. This was the second year of this document being prepared for council. Our requirement is to have a 3-year operating plan, not a 5-year operating plan, but felt because we have a 5-year capital plan at this point, we might as well adhere to that same time period for our operating plan. I used Jeff's capital plan to build this document. So his capital is transferred in based on coming from operations, some coming from operations, some coming from reserves, and some coming from debentures. In this plan, over the next 5 years, I have $6 million in borrowing, and then some money coming from capital reserves each year. You'll notice the property tax stabilization reserve, I have a red line at the bottom. That's my budgeting balancing number, where I'm taking funds in and out of the stabilization reserve. The net impact over 5 years at the bottom is you'll see a $3.33 million number at the bottom on the right corner. That is how much the reserves are going to grow over the next 5 years, and that's basically from interest. It's from the interest, because we're going to have interest-bearing reserves now, so now that has an impact on our operating budget. So in 2026, I've removed a significant amount of revenue from general revenue for interest revenue. So that impacts our 2026 budget year. The other adjustment I made, we are expecting another significant increase in school recs in 2026. One of the things, I think we had a conversation when you asked about the funding, why schools aren't getting it. I don't think that it has anything to do with school funding. This is just municipalities paying a bigger share of the pot. They want us to go from 26% to 33%. So over 2 years, that's how they're going to get us there. So municipality is just going to pay a bigger slice of the pie. So I've adjusted that in the operating budget for another significant requisition increase. I removed the fire engine in 2026 because we don't have another fire engine coming in.
Right, Councillor Dean?
Can I clarify that, sorry, through the chair? Municipalities collect the revenue, and so it's our responsibility to collect the revenue, but really it's the residents that are paying that extra money. And anybody that's listening, you know, I want to be clear that it's not the municipalities that are paying for this, it's the residents. We're just the collector of the money.
Yeah, and you look at the bottom line too, and it reflects your revenues going up, but obviously we have our expenses going up by the same amount. Our municipal taxes are being held at 2.9%. So we have developed a tax insert for let's go with the tax bills that we hope will provide our ratepayers with a good understanding of where their dollars are going. And so that is definitely, I think we finalized it, Nikita finalized it, I think we've got a final document. And so we will be reinforcing that to our ratepayers when they come to the front counter, if they have any issues with their tax bill going up and it's not related to municipal taxes. So the plan, if you look at the top, I have assessment growth. I haven't factored in a lot of assessment growth because I know we don't want to count on that. Inflation, I've used 3%, and I know 2% is kind of what Bank of Canada manages to, but I find Alberta's inflation is usually higher than that, you know, around that. So it's conservative at 3%. And then the tax increase, you can see I've kind of balanced it as best as I can over the time to keep the increase at a reasonable rate. Now that rate includes the large increase in school taxes next year, right? So that means the municipal portion is probably quite a bit lower than 3.5%, the municipal portion. I want to just, very important, because I've sent you a forecast in last year that had higher tax increases in it. And that was based on increasing capital contributions. We had built that forecast based on adding more capital. This is based on Jeff's capital plan right now for 5 years. And if we have opportunities to add more capital, we do have a capital deficit, and it may be a need that council's going to have to look at, is adding more capital. But again, at this point, Jeff's capital plan indicates what he can do based on what he thinks he has available in his resources right now. 2030 might change dramatically when he gets, you know, one more year down the line and sees other projects potentially. And we're not counting the large any airport project, where if we don't get the grant, we're saying that project won't go ahead. So it's not in our capital plan.
Councillor Wong?
Through the chair to administration, so I'm sure this is already on the table, but I think it would probably be smart moving into 2026 to look at a capital plan that does address that deficit over, even if it's adjusting our 5-year plan for that, right? Like, I mean, we don't want to wait another 5 years to try to address that deficit. So I think it should be something that should be a task of administration in the next year to come up with some kind of, because we've somewhat flattened our taxation this year, but I mean, moving forward, we need to address that problem in the future. So I think that needs to be done it'd be good to get at least the ball rolling in that direction.
Okay, well, that'll be a takeaway, I guess, for Jeff and myself. So I agree 100%. That's why I think we did that forecast for you last year to understand the capital deficit. If you look at our financial statements, obviously we're in really solid position from a reserve perspective. We've got now $26 million in reserves. We've got 3 in unrestricted surplus, but our equity and tangible capital assets went down again this year. So we're just not reinvesting enough in our assets. And that's why we end up on the list for municipal affairs, because the expectation is that you would have more than your amortization every year in capital. It's important to note too that while we have a lot of capital this year, it's a larger number, it's close to over 11 million, you can't count the debenture projects because they go into equity over the 20-year period as you pay them off. So, you know, we're not going to add $4.5 million in capital this year. It's just going to be whatever we pay in principal. But we will become much closer to the $7 million number than we ever have in a long time. So that's a good indicator, at least for 2025, that we've investing in maybe a little bit more capital for 2025. But I agree that we should be looking at the future years and trying to make sure that they equal level of capitals too, if we can, right? Maintain a level of capital instead of having 11 one year, 3 1 year, but that'll just take some time to work on the plan. And I believe the goal is to try and get it to a 10-year plan, because that's our reserve policy says we want to set up our reserves based on our 10-year capital plan. So we do have that on our agenda to change it to a 10-year plan.
Good.
So if there's no other questions, I would ask council to adopt the 2025 5-year operating plan as presented.
All right, any other questions, comments from council? Councilor Dean?
I move that council adopts a 2025 5-year operating plan as presented.
Thank you. I seen a hand go up there, Councilor Burrows. Were you looking to make a comment?
No, thanks, Mr. Chair. No, I was going to make the motion, but I couldn't find. I have to go back and forth between screens when I'm online, so it makes it difficult. But I guess while I'm on, I can just comment that we've come a long way in not a short period of time, but it's been a difficult time. But I think we've come quite a long way when I look at the numbers. We're putting reserves away. We're modest municipal revenue increases. And this school requisition is starting to really get carried away. At the rate we're going, we're very, very fast approaching the 50% mark at the residential end of their residential tax bill is going to the province. I think we're at about 43% right now. That was all.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's passed. 9.4, Policy FIAM 5002, Disposal of Surplus Assets and Items.
Your Worship and members of council, this proposed policy for disposal of surplus assets and items was brought to GMP last week, and GMP referred the policy to council for review and adoption. This proposed policy looks into provide disposal authority for low value assets and items, as well as laid out potential disposal methods. That being said, I'm open to any questions council may have.
Was any further discussion on this topic? That's Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council rescinds policy 1206.
Thank you, Councillor. First motion on the floor to rescind policy 1206. Discussion on that motion. Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's passed. And we have a second motion. Councillor Dean.
Move that council adopts policy FIAM 5.002, disposal of surplus assets and items.
Thank you, Councillor. Again, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's passed. 9.5, Member Appointment Airport Advisory Committee.
Your Worship, members of council, in the preparation of eventual
Airport Advisory Committee meeting. We were just going through the members' appointments, and we recognized one member, Mr. Mike Milner from Alberta Wildfire. His appointment expired. In order to be able to have him at the advisory committee meeting whenever that is called, we have to have his appointment reinstated, because that position is a position mentioned in the term of reference for the Airport Advisory Committee. It is therefore we have also contacted Mr. Mike Milner to confirm that he's still interested to attend. Therefore, we put forward this RFD for his appointment to be extended by 2 years. Thank you.
Councillor Dean?
Okay, if there's no question, I just move that council appoint Mike Milner, Alberta Wildfire, to serve as a member of the Airport Advisory Committee from April 23rd, 2025 to October 31st, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's moved. 9.6, election 2025 advance vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to ensure that our residents have an appropriate amount of time to vote in the municipal election, we're requesting that you establish some additional days for advance polls, and we request the motion recommended in the agenda item.
Thank you. Discussion around the RFE? Councillor Wilhelm?
I'll motion that council establish Thursday, October 16th, 2025 from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday, October 18th, 2025 from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. as the dates and times for Woodlands County advance polls.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That was carried. Correspondence and information. Councillor correspondence. Anything there? Councillor Dean?
I'd move that council receive the council correspondence for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Brings me down to council reports and questions. I'll start with Councillor Burrows online there.
Sorry, had to find my mute button. Yeah, April 14th, I was down at the Pembina District 3 meeting, so that's our group. I don't think anyone, well, there were 2 other councillors there, but I don't think anyone here in attendance, so I can just give a brief update. The biggest thing that we were having a conversation around was really the rural infrastructure debt. We're talking about across the province a $17 billion bridge infrastructure debt that is on the horizon for rural municipalities, and how are we going to deal with them. So the continued downloading onto the municipalities from the province as far as financial responsibilities is concerned, it's getting difficult. So we were trying to have conversations around really how to make that our ends meet that way. That was it for the priorities, governance and priorities meeting on the 16th, and that was all my items for Woodlands.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Burrows? Seeing any? Councillor Wilhelm?
All right. So since the last meeting, we had our community services meeting. Some highlights from that is we 8 FCSS grants, 4 recreational and 4 arts and culture, with a total of $30,000 investment into the community from with those grants. We've got a youth member on that committee who's looking to research into doing a youth advisory committee for Woodlands County. A look around the province, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of rural youth advisory committees, so we might be at the forefront of this, or maybe it might not be feasible. I do understand the hurdles of that with trying to get youth from around a wide area of Woodlands County will be difficult. So she's, how old is she, Heather?
16.
She's 16, so she's a big foray into municipal government for her. She's also the chair of our community services committee, so or vice chair, sorry, vice chair. And so she's getting a look at what it looks like to build committees and be involved in local government. So really, really huge for her, and I think she's got a bright future potentially in local politics. And then we have our Volunteer Appreciation Awards ceremony coming up on May 3rd. Winners will be chosen beforehand and then announced at the event, correct? Yeah. And we'll be having Danny Hooper emceeing the event, so a pretty popular, well-known guy, so it should be a really awesome event, and I think there's quite a few people going to it, so can't wait to get there. On the Saturday after that, we had our Whitecourt Community Services strat planning session for the year, where we come up with ideas to present to the Whitecourt Town Council as to things that the residents of the community and the committee want to see addressed or brought forward. And so what I brought forward onto that committee was looking for synergies between Woodlands County and Whitecourt Community Services Committee, and for events that we could potentially do together where we could maybe broaden our horizons on that stuff. So they were, the committee itself was very much in favor of seeing that. So we got to rank, actually I probably can't say too much about it because I think we weren't supposed to talk too much about it, but we were allowed to rank the proposals brought forward, and the ones that had to do with Whitecourt and Woodlands working together were pretty popular in that. And then we had our GMP meeting last Wednesday, which all the policies we discussed there passed today. So that's all I have to share.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Wilhelm? Councillor Dean?
Thank you. So I have some notes. I'll keep them brief with respect to the EDA conference that a number of us attended. Really, the highlight for me was the presentation on the Wonder Valley concept. The Kevin O'Leary group is looking to create AI data centers in the Greenview Industrial Gateway Industrial Park, south of Grand Prairie. So just here are some of the numbers that they rolled out. There's potentially 7,000 jobs that would be generated from that project. The investment in that project by the O'Leary Group is upwards of $14 billion. And when asked whether, is the horse out of the barn, is there any hope for any other municipality to present a business case to any other companies that might be looking at setting up AI centers, given the fact that our climate is conducive to the center's need to cool all those computers that they're working. The feedback that came back to that question was that they foresee, so the folks from the O'Leary Group foresee upwards of $250 billion of investment that's potential in our province. So it's a little bit leading edge, bleeding edge, but there seems to be a tremendous opportunity worldwide for AI generation. And then, I do want to highlight again what Michelle Jones, she's briefly talked about the Community Investment Readiness Dashboard that the EDA has made available to municipalities. So it's kind of like a checklist that a municipality can go through to give you a real broad overview of the readiness. So I know that our ECDEV committee is going to have a look at that. So I'll leave it at that for EDA. Just contrary to what Councillor Burrows said, I was in attendance at the Pembina Zone meeting, and John gave a report on what was discussed. I wanted to conclude my report with a conversation I had with a resident who is a senior who is looking at dust control. And so council, last year, we raised the cost of residential dust control, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's a significant cost for seniors, especially those that are in fixed income. And to Councillor Burrow's point, a couple of years ago at the community services level, where we talked about the various benefits that are available to seniors and how they how you can attach a dollar figure to them. Snowflakes, for example, seniors are allowed 3 free snowflakes, and the value of that is approximately $150. There's a seniors transportation grant that's available to help seniors get to medical appointments, etc. And that value is on the order of $300. So right there, we're looking at $450 that would cover the cost of dust control if that senior wasn't using flags and wasn't using the transportation credit. So I'd ask council to consider that. It's not something that we're going to solve today, but I'd ask council to consider that at an upcoming meeting to see whether there can be some flexibility in that. I think what Councillor Burrows described it as that senior's wallet. It's not really in existence right now, but I really see value in providing flexibility to our residents to take funds that could be afforded to them and use them in the best way for them individually. So yeah, that's my report.
You have any questions for Councillor Dean?
Yeah, just one. I wanted to pick up on something that Councillor Dean, and sorry, Councillor Dean, I didn't mean to report an error that you weren't at the, I forgot, I got a lot going on. The data center, I can forward this to you, Council, I just received it today, but it's an ASO update on data centers, and the amount of power generation that is going to be required to run these data centers, the cumulative request load by the Q1 of 2025 is 11.879 megawatts for data centers across the province. And I'll send this to you. So, some of the projects that we have that are in our area that are looking at power generation, which we have 2, it looks like it'll be something driving that as well, as that incredible power usage that data centers need. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. Other than that, thank you.
Yeah, so to that point, Councillor Burrows, again in that presentation by the O'Leary Group, they talked about what they call the 4 Ps that were required to get these data centers off the ground. And the data centers, of course, use an incredible amount of power. So the 4 Ps were power, people, ping, which is fiber optics, and then policy, which is policies that all levels of government have that will enable rather than restrict those projects to go forward. And in terms of cost to that generation, the power generation, I don't know where they got these numbers, but their estimate on cost per gigawatt for nuclear, for the footprint and getting the operation up and running, was $16 billion per gigawatt. Natural gas is set at $2 billion per gigawatt. And the message that was being sent is that we live in a province with an abundance of natural gas, and maybe that's one way we can leverage that asset.
Anything else for Councillor Dean? Not seeing any. I was also at the EDA one other presenter that I enjoyed the conversation around. They were talking a lot about the trade issues currently north and south of our border, and they were highlighting a lot of the lack of investment that we've been seeing in Canada and growth over, I can't remember the map or the chart that showed, but I think it was at least 10 years that we've been on a steady decline as far as overall investment in industry within our country. And this is no surprise to anybody who works in industry or runs any type of business. If you take a look at what you're doing, if you're not investing in yourself and you're just letting things kind of slowly go away, you end up in an issue, and that's part of where we're at. They said the challenge that they would put to whoever comes into federal office is to ask, for people to ask and drive the narrative as to what type of investment into our infrastructure and into our trade, especially across cross-border policies and getting things to port that they're looking at putting into. So there are lots of talks on the social end of things, but you don't see a lot of talk on what their actually plan is for industry moving product and what to try to drive and attract that investment again. So see where it goes. We have a federal election coming, but I'm hoping that a lot of the individuals within that room from different aspects of different industry, we're all saying the same thing, that we need to be looking within our borders and what we can do to promote growth internally in Canada and not always being as reliant on outside drivers. So we'll see where that goes. I attended the MPC. It was a kind of short meeting in GMP. Most of what we did there was passed here. Only other meeting I was able to attend, I had my Ensemble Ag meeting. They're talking about summertime coming up, some of the projects that are going on, and with it being that time of the year where we have grants showing up for our community groups, there was a lot of accolades around the table for Heather again. So year over year, they always talk about how fantastic it is to deal with the county compared to other municipalities that they use, and your name comes up at the forefront all the time as one of the best contacts that they have. So thank you very much, and great job, Heather. That's all for me. With that, if I can get a motion to accept the council reports. Councilor Dean.
Move that council receives the council reports and questions as information.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? And that's moved. Brings us to 11.2, the 2025 Quarterly Community Services Operational Report.
Thank you, Council. So attached is the quarterly 2025 Community Services Operational Report for Protective Services, Health and Safety, Community Services, and Planning and Economic Development. Protective Services, I guess just one highlight there would be that we had a recent meeting with Alberta Forest Service and Wildfire, and they're looking at doing some site-specific clearing of areas around the hamlet of Blue Ridge. They're in specific FMAs, so requesting those companies that hold those FMAs to do clearing sooner in their plans than what they would normally do. And that's in particular to get rid of the black spruce, which is a highly volatile tree. Health and safety, as you can see, attached is her report. Again, training compliance is up, and our inspections completed in Work Hub is up significantly as well. So safety, again, is very important in the organization, and we continue to strive for that throughout the organization. Planning, a little more on the land use bylaw. We've discussed at the last meeting kind of a general timeline for completion, hopefully. May review, or in May, we want to review by legal and the committee. June, we'll have a final public engagement, and then hopefully in August and September, council can do their final review, and we can host the public hearings and get it put to bed. Community services, as noted, we got our volunteer appreciation event coming up right away here, as well as there's preliminary planning and bookings going on for the Family Fun Day in September. The exciting news here is that we did interviews for the recreation coordinator's position. we haven't officially given an offer, but we have got a selected individual that we would like to bring on board. So that offer will be going out this week, is my understanding. Economic development, we're excited to announce that the administrative assistant starts next Monday. So that'll be good, that we can get some more initiatives going on there. I know that the local vendor program, we're gonna try and push that one out a little more so that we can get some more involvement this year. I know last year it was just a pilot project. This year we'd like to see it expand to a bigger number of participants in that program. Yeah, and then just some upcoming events. Here in May will be the Chamber Trade Fair. So if anybody's got any questions?
Any,
Uh,
Councilor Burrows?
Just one, Mr. Chair. I just see on the protective services in April that you met with GOA regarding 2023 flood DRP. Anything for the folks down Old Ferry Loop that might be information?
Through the chair to Councillor Burrows, not that I'm aware of, but I can certainly check with Sheldon when he gets back and let you know that.
So, yeah,
Okay.
Jeff has his hand up. It looks like he's
Sorry?
eagerly got an answer for you.
Yeah. Yes, he was in the meeting.
Councilor
so-
Burrows, I'll provide updating my report.
He'll,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, get an update here soon. Anything else for Joan? Not seeing any. If I get a motion to accept the community services report, Councillor
I'll
Wilhelm.
make a motion that council receives the quarterly 2023 Community Services Operational Report for information.
If I could make a friendly amendment to change it from 2023 to 2025.
Did I say 2023? Oh boy. Friendly amendment accepted.
Okay, motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. 11.3 first quarter 2025 corporate services report.
Thank you, Regent Council. You have a summary of the activities that happened in Q1 for our team in finance, asset management, HR, and in IT. I won't go through everything in too much detail since you can read the report, but I just wanted to point out a couple of key points. We did successfully fill 2 accounting clerk positions, and we promoted an internal candidate to the accounting specialist role. And this is kind of a key moment for us as we actually have full employment in our finance department for the first time in years. So I know that the auditors mentioned the bank recs being delayed, and it's an issue that we've been working on. And with our new staff and our ability to now download into some of our finance managers' duties, we believe we will get back to current by the end of May this year and be on a monthly basis. So just so you know that we are very aware of that being an issue for finance. The ICF, I noted here that we received the final invoice, but that's not true. We received the backup. The invoice will not come until their audit's done. The director of corporate services at the town said early May we'll get our final 2024 invoice for the ICF. Obviously, we had the audit, and the biggest issue for our whole team is system implementation. ERP, asset management, we have regular meetings on an ongoing basis. We've added Cascadia Consulting. I think we've told you what they do for support, and they've been a real help. But again, it adds another meeting every week, so we're finding that it's a lot of time that people have to spend, especially the finance manager for us right now. So we're trying to unload some of those activities for.
Councillor Dean?
Can you just clarify, have the software systems been, or the ERP, the new financial system, has that been purchased and it's being integrated now? Is that what Cascadia is helping with?
Yeah, so we've purchased it basically. We're in implementation. We bought the software from a company called Syllogist, which is our former Bellamy, and they have a financial system that they have already rolled out to hundreds of customers for financial side, and we're taking on their utility system and their property tax system, and so we're in the process right now of what they do call discovery, where they find out what we need for property taxes, what we need for utilities. And then once they do that, they'll map up how they get the data into our new system from historical data. Because they have to get us our historical data on the tax side and the utility side. So we're at that point right now on the ERP side where we're in discovery. On the chart of accounts, LAN is down to our last discussions, and they're gonna bring our financial data back, history back into their new system. And then we'll have access to the programs on the cloud probably within, well, we can already go on it, but there's no data there. So, but we'll have data very soon. On the asset management side, they are much further along. They've got, like, they're really, in terms of just developing they're working on the maintenance portion of it, the GIS portion, and then the asset management side. It's kind of like three different areas of business. And so we have all of our assets in there. We're struggling a little bit with tying it to our ERP for tangible capital assets for TCA. So that will be a bit of a project for somebody in finance, but I think things are going well. The citywide on the asset management side said we're in good shape. They would like us to go faster, but we keep on telling them we have to get ERP caught up first. We're not going to go and create extra work. And so I think with Cascadia, what they have done is just coordinate the activities. They've drawn a map of what's going to integrate this way, what's going to integrate that way, why we're going to do it that way, what will we do manually, what we won't do manually, depending on how much volume there is. So we've really got a good picture of what it's going to look like in the future state, which we didn't have before. And I'm not saying that it's not a struggle for like our asset management team in terms of just, they're very busy. Like they're just at the time it takes to keep on top of this. And so they're doing a great job, but again, it's time consuming, and all you can do is do it as much as you can do at a time. We're doing step by step, adding a layer by layer. We're going to start with the work orders with ASB first, and then slowly add in different departments. One of the key things will be when we get to the asset management side, and I already mentioned it, is that how we manage the day-to-day work without burdening our outdoor workers to have to do things that that's going to take too much time for them. So we want it to be easy for them. We want drop-down menus that they just have to select. Here's the asset, here's the project. We want to make it easy for them because it's going to be on an iPad or a phone. We can't make it complicated for them. And so that's going to be the struggle where we need to maybe have some admin support for those people in infrastructure. I don't think we want our asset management manager to be doing work orders. She's the strategic person. She's the one that's going to come take the data and determine what we need to get out of it. She's the big picture thing that we don't want her to be in the day-to-day. So that's what we're working on, is how to set those roles and those boundaries for each person. So I think we're in a good place, but we're still, I think November is what we're going to try and have the ERP live. Bellamy disappears technically December 31st, but they've agreed to let us stay on until March 31st, and just in case we want to do some of the year-end stuff or some of the year-end activities on Bellamy, because it might be easier for us just to do it that way. We'll have to see how it rolls out. It all depends on how easy it is to use the new system. Budgeting will probably be a bit of an issue for us too for 2026, because I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do for the budgeting process. If the new system's just going live, it's too late for us, right, on the budgeting side. I am involved with Discovery on the budget system, I think in the first week of May. So they are going to advance that, so I'm part of that team. Other than that, Lan and her staff they're the members of the teams in the other areas, property taxes, utilities, so we've kind of spread the burden as much as we can. Asset management's a little harder because it's just the two bodies.
Yeah.
And so they're working very hard.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for Andrew? Not seeing any. If I can get a motion to accept the corporate services report. Councillor Wilhelm.
A motion that council receives the first quarter 2025
corporate services report as information.
Counselor, call the question, all in favor? And that's moved. 11.4, 2025 Q1 infrastructure service report.
Your worship, members, council, I'm here to provide the first quarter infrastructure services report. We have a pretty busy year, in terms of our capital and operating. We also have a pretty heavy summer in front of us. In terms of the capital projects, Harlan Canyon, the stairs should be installed before May long weekend. We have some other seasonal work that needs to happen in the summer, but hopefully we can get the stairs replaced before it opens for business this year. Item number three, the tandem plow truck, that should be arrived by the end of this month. I've heard it's been delayed a few times already, but I have some final confirmation it's coming by the end of this month. Item number 5, airport runway engineering, the news for our STIP application is expected for June 2025. I'll keep council updated once we hear about the results, so keep our fingers crossed. Item number 9 and item number 10 for both flood damage repairs. Traditional DRP programs are reimbursements. They don't really, the province doesn't really tell you how much you're eligible for. You have a general understanding of what's your upside limit, and you just finish the project and then submit your bills and hope for the best. I've been asking the province for a determination of what's our baseline reimbursement amount before we make next step decisions. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the municipality when it comes to capital planning. How do you plan for a project? You don't know how much money you're getting from the province. They're finally budging a little bit, so likely in May they will be completing their initial engineering report. This is the report that the province write themselves for their purposes. And the province committed to have a meeting with us in early May to advise us on what that baseline reimbursement value may be, and we can use that information in future decision makings. So that will be an update I'll bring back to council in due course. Item number 11 and 12, those two projects has been tendered. The contract has been signed yesterday, so we now have a contractor. We'll be contacting the contractor for a pre-construction meeting. The construction is going to happen in the summer month. Item number 13, 14, 15, and 16, these 4 are in the resurfacing tender. The tender has been advertised. It closes on April 28th, and I will provide updates when construction is near, so that residents have adequate notice in terms of construction inconvenience and notification. Item number 18, what the water line service connection replacements. I just want to highlight that we missed the opportunity 2 years ago when the province was repaving 661. Generally, you want to undertake any underground work before resurfacing, so you don't open up the same area twice. We missed the boat 2 years ago, and now we need to do service line repairs and replacements, and we have to open up a provincial highway and then pave it back. This is why the price tag is very high for this type of work. I have asked my staff to consider the lessons learned for future projects. When before we have a future repaving project, we take a look what's necessary underground, needs to be fixed before we undertake the paving project. Next page, item 24, we have RFQ drafted. We should be able to advertise by the end of April for this tandem plow truck. Item 25, we have received bids. The bids are quite favorable compared with our budget.
We will be making a decision on a PO by the end of this month to get the pickup truck procured. Item 29, the airport booster station SCADA. We have a contractor and we should be able to finish this upgrade by July 2025. Item number 33, the Blue Ridge Spray Park computer upgrade. We should be able to finish that by end of May, just before the summer season for the spray park. Item 34, I take Councillor Dean's comment, and in development of next year's budget presentation, we can look at potentially increase the amount of roads that we need to do. The current budget, the constraint that we have at the time of preparation is we try to target the same $650,000 mark. That's the target that we were focusing on when we developed the program. As our financial situation improves, there's definitely the opportunity for increases should council wish to consider.
Thank you.
Back to 34. We have 4 new subdivisions to work on this year, as well as 2 subdivision we worked on last year that we need to put a chip seal surface layer on. We're currently working on the design tender package. We should have the tender package ready by May, and then go off for tender. The work is reconstruction work and seal coat work. They need hot summer days to be worked on. So we're targeting construction in the July-August month of the year. Item 35, the urgent culvert replacements. We had some favorable tender prices. We have $100,000 saving we can turn back to the general revenue. We have finished 5 culverts out of 6. The last culvert, I'm still holding some money towards that. I'm waiting for the province to make a determination. Our rent application, whether they will support us in funding the last remaining culvert needs to be replaced. Item 36, we have just came to a decision this morning. We'll be issuing a PO this afternoon for the purchase of this ATV mower. Item 37 has been completed. We now have this mower. Item 38, we have issued purchase orders for 2 additional hand hinge rollers that's going to be delivered in May, so we can use it for summer season. Item 39 is the downstairs development for our office here. I did ask, as Andrew said, we did ask for a slight increase to the funding. We're currently in tendering. We are currently soliciting quotes from contractors. We hope to start the construction in May and hopefully finish sometime in the summer. Item 40, Grove Creek Slide. We are currently hiring a 3-year geotechnical consultant for the county. And one of the first tasks that the consultant will be undertaking is take a look of the slide. It was repaired last year in winter months, and it slid again in early summer. So instead of going back to repair the slide, I thought the best solution is to find out what's going on underneath before we spend any more money. Item number 43, the mezzanine floor. The construction has started. We anticipate the construction completion in June of 2025. Item 44, asphalt sprayer has been procured and is complete. That's all the capital items update. If there's no questions, I can move on.
One question I have on the capital, on the old ferry, so you had discussions with the province on, funding that they might potentially put forward towards, the project. Could you share with us what the scope of the project we're talking the province is? Are we just talking about the turnaround, or are we talking about possible bank reinforcement?
Through the Church Council, I have not specified a solution for the province. My question to the province is, what is the province going to reimburse the county, assuming we are restoring to the pre-flood condition? The province funding is purposely hinged on those exact words. It's what's the pre-disaster functional state. So that was my question back to the province. I do not want to commit the county to selecting one solution over another. It's at this stage, it's best, I believe, the doors open so the province can come to their own determination, so we're not losing it on any potential funding.
Any other questions on the capital side? Councilor Burrows?
Just one, thanks for the update on the Old Ferry question. On the Groat Creek slide, so 100,000 for engineering, and that was repaired once already and it slid. Was that engineered the first time around?
Through the chair to Councilor Burrows, we did have an engineer on staff. However, I was not here at the time. My understanding is the engineer was more looking at restoring rather than what's underneath as the potential cost. Because it was done through the flood mitigation program as a project under that program.
So is that, to clarify then, is this failure still eligible under the flood recovery funding?
Through the chair to Councilor Burrows, that would depend on the investigation the geotechnical consultant will be doing. If the result is the slide was caused by underground condition, then I will think it's not eligible under DRP. If the result is otherwise, the answer is maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the capital side? Not seeing anything good. Looks like you're good to go on the operational side.
Thank you. In terms of operations, the past winter, we had an average, we have seen an average amount of snow. However, the amount of occurrences of warm spells in the past winter has been more significant than previous winters. We had quite a few challenging situations of returning roads to proper winter drying condition, including airport. We spent twice the amount of chemicals trying to battle the ice at the airport. In terms of airport operations, the staff has switched to summer operations. In the summer, we will be undertaking some minor drainage improvements, just to try to get rid of any standing water to keep the birds and other wildlife away from the airport. In terms of water, wastewater, we have submitted our year-end report to Alberta Environment, and the inspection of the airport water distribution reservoir was conducted in 2024, and that inspection identified two items for improvement. One is the need to increase the frequency of bacteriological sampling, and secondly, to modify our testing procedure for trihalomethanes. And both of those identified improvements has already been implemented. The watercolor issue at Blue Ridge has improved. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. And in last year's capital update report, I forgot to mention that Fort Assiniboine's plant SCADA system was upgraded to improve system communication and diagnostics. So I'm just writing here in this report so that council have the right information. In terms of solid waste, we have installed some cameras at the transfer sites. We're in the phase of testing and calibrating and just try it out to see whether we're getting clear imaging from the cameras to deter the illegal activities. There's free landfill days, May 21st to 24th. That's a joint event between the county and the town. We will be undertaking a financial analysis on outsourcing versus continue the in-house garbage pickup for the hamlets.
In terms of agriculture services, we have retained a contractor for the mowing for our county roadside. There's only one bidder, so and the price was within budget, so we award that to the single bidder. In terms of road operations, I already mentioned the challenging winter we had. We are dealing with culvert freezings and returning the roads to a proper summer driving condition. We are currently accepting resident paid dust control applications. We are currently arranging for roadside cleanup, which I will bring the policy to council for when the policy is reviewed. We are planning for summer programs. We have, as council may recall from last year's budget discussion in December, we have a pretty busy summer schedule ahead of us, so we're actively doing planning work to undertake those summer programs. We have retained consultants for 3-year engineering assignments for roadway, for bridge, and as I mentioned before, we're currently hiring for one more for geotechnical. There may be a 4th one that we'll be undertaking is for environmental services. We do have the need of hiring a fisheries biologist to help us with any in-stream work. In the past, it's been just ad hoc or hired under a engineering consultant, but there's benefit of being a standalone contract. And lastly, on the road side, we're currently evaluating winter maintenance delivery and any ideas for improvements similar to what we did last year in October with summer road improvement ideas. So when that review is done, we'll be bringing that to council for discussion. Lastly, on the corporate level, as Andrew already mentioned, we are trying with 2 areas, agriculture services and fleet, as 2 areas to try out the work order system. We are working with Sheldon and his consultant to try to recover money for the DRP 2023 from the province. We recently received a federal grant of $16,800 for hiring summer students. We are hiring in a few more permanent positions that council graciously approved last year. And we are currently working on a number of policy reviews, including road line painting, roadside cleanup, traffic bylaw, and the ASB bylaw. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Any questions on the operational side? Councilor Burrows?
Nope, if there's no question, I'll just make the motion that council receives the Q1 2025 infrastructure services report as information.
Thank you, Councilor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's moved. 11.5, Q1 2025 policy update report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In accordance with our municipal handbook policy, I'm required to provide you quarterly updates on all the changes, now recognizing that there are some policies and procedures that don't come here. And so that being said, this is a summary of the ones that are actively being reviewed by us or that have been adopted by council. There have not been any policies yet that have been implemented without direct authorization from council. I do anticipate in Q2 there will be some HR policies and stuff like that as we slowly chip away at our policy deficit, which will in turn require more information attached to the item, but these are all policies that council has seen and has adopted, so that there's nothing new here. But as required, it says quarterly we will provide you an update, and this is the update.
Any questions, comments, council? Councilor Wilhelm?
Motion, council receives the Q1 quarterly policy update for information.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's passed. 11.6, April 14th, 2025 variance report.
Thank you, Reeve Council. As you're very much aware that this has been a major weakness in reporting or finance reporting to council. And this is an area we're going to be working on improving in the current year. And you'll be getting a report on every quarterly update at a minimum. This is early in the year, so the variances are really kind of hard to go through just because we haven't spent a lot of money yet and the property taxes haven't gone out. But I'll just run you through the report. It's nothing major. Obviously, we haven't invoiced property taxes yet, so you won't see any revenue in May. Interest income is tracking on budget. You'll see gravel royalty. We always invoice that at the end of the year, so we always have a large variance on gravel royalty. As we get into the next quarter, we'll be giving you a forecast. It won't just be a variance, we'll give you a forecast to year end. This was run before I made all the budget changes for wages, so you'll see some allocation issues that I fixed so that they won't show up again and after this report is updated. And allowance for doubtful accounts, that won't happen. We won't really do that until closer to the end of the year. You'll see in here, this was April 14th, we hadn't updated the budget yet for the ICF. So we obviously had to adjust the ICF in the budget. So this is a little bit out of date, this budget. It's the interim budget. And the fire engine is included in the Blue Ridge. I thought it was in Selmo, but I guess it says Blue Ridge. No, in Selmo. So we do have a fire. So if you'll notice the Selmo, their actuals are historically kind of in the $60,000, $70,000 range. And this year is going to be over $1 million, but it's just their capital contribution for the fire engine. We have not updated any equipment charge outs yet. So this is a manual process right now. And we wanted to get to an automated process, but it's going to depend on what we do on our decision on our next payroll system. So our current payroll system does not have the ability to do equipment costing. But we will be looking at the Cellologist payroll system and to see what kind of functionality it has. And if we do that, we may then get that function automated again. Right now, it's based on an estimate, and it's a manual entry that's done every quarter. And anything else to comment on? I think that's basically it. We just haven't spent a lot of funds yet. You'll see that, especially if I run it on April 14th, we probably don't have a lot, even March expenditures in there yet for accounts payable. It's one thing that takes a little bit of delay in terms of getting the costs into the system. And capital, again, we haven't spent hardly any of the capital budget either at this point. And that'll be ongoing. So that's really, unless you have some questions, there's not much to show you at this point in time.
Any questions or comments from council on the variance report? Councilor Dean?
Excuse me, I move the council receives the April 14th, 2025 variance report as information.
Thank you, councilor. Discussion, motion. Not seeing any on public questions. All in favor? It's moved. 11.7 service track reports for March 2025.
Freedman Council attached is the service tracker report for March. Nothing too out of the ordinary, about 50 requests for the month. 5 of them being employee kudos for equipment operators. And then there were a couple of inquiries regarding the condition of the construction on the subdivision roads from last summer.
This is actually the highest I've seen of in Selma. Any other comments?
See, Whitecourt East is back up on the leaderboard again.
Not seeing any more comments. Anybody wants to move it? Councilor Wilhelm?
A motion the council receives the April 14th, 2025 March monthly service tractor report as information. Oh man, I'm struggling today.
Thank you, councilor. Call the question. All in favor? And that is
Favor.
moved. 11.8 quarterly CAO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I couldn't do any of this without our directors or team in general, so thank you for them and all the work that they've already put forward to you to show just how busy it was for our quarter. But the first thing that I've been focusing on for sure is our ICF, not only planning for our ongoing negotiations with the town, but also just scheduling meetings is a little bit more difficult than I like, but we're making headway. Andrew and I have a meeting this week to discuss the 2025 numbers, and it looks like we will finally be hosting an ICF committee meeting early in May based on the confirmations of dates of the applicable committee members. As you know, I've been working away on the tactical and strategic plans and just making them a little bit more measurable from the ones that are coming due in 2025. At the time of this item was being submitted, the initial drafts were about 70%. They're now closer to 100%, and I sent them out to all the directors this week, where we're going to further discuss them internally and then work with their department managers to make sure that they get implemented, with a key just being of measurable indicators and metrics for council to show how we're achieving the great work that we already know we're doing. But one example that I'll give you off the top is I had a discussion with Bert, and he indicated to me that on a weekly basis he is doing a check-in with a local business just on what they're doing and how they're doing, but it's not being reported to you that we're doing check-ins with businesses. So just making sure that the great work that we already do gets shown to council and the public as well, just through making sure we're measuring them. And so that'll be a big shift within these business plans, but that's definitely something that we're looking forward to. I got an updated email today, so we're looking probably that the benefit rollout is more likely now into June 1st. Just they couldn't hit the targets for May. It's looking at a 1 to 2% reduction in the overall bill for the county. But overall, our service level appears to be increasing with minimal charges for everyone across the board. I think that's a good thing. Job offer will be going out today to the new director to replace Andrew, if that's at all possible, with a hopeful start early into May. They've actually asked to meet and go over the offer in person, so that may take a little bit longer, but I think it's the right fit. And this time around, when we changed the name of the director position, not only did we get municipal experience, we got award-winning municipal experience with decades plus experience in municipal government. So our candidates were amazing, and all we did was change the title of the position. So there was definitely a lot of interest that way, and so I think it's going to actually work out quite well for us. Worked with the team to finish the budget, but I can't take any credit for it. It was all Andrew and Lan. In terms of, we completed the surveying for the census, so that's all ready to roll out. We're just completing some recruitment aspects of that, and we're on schedule for that. We reestablished the staff social committee, and we're doing a bunch of stuff internally for staff. We had a really good potluck here just before Easter there, and some events for staff to help with our culture, which can always be improved upon. For health and safety, we're doing a great job there. There's still some improvement, but since January, we've seen about a 200% increase on electronic reporting. So when you see that much of an uptake, it's definitely worth just noting that our team are taking it seriously, and we're trying to balance the monitoring of it and the responsibilities of management versus the employee versus the directors and that sort of thing, just to make sure that we're all taking ownership of our parts rather than just a top-down, you have to be safe, because this is your role in how we're safe. And so we're looking forward to rolling that out and developing that into the next quarter. We're also just, with some of the policies and stuff we're rolling out, we found that some staff have been coming up and just asking for clarity on what's the proper directive on establishing policies or procedures. So we're going to be hosting some internal workshops there to help expand not only my expectations, but expectations of our directors, and just to ensure we're on a consistency point of view, we're all doing it with the same direction. In terms of policies and bylaw review, that was already attached in another item, so I'll leave that. Went to the SMR conference, which you're aware of. We had a meeting with Pembina Hills, Joan, Heather, and I think it went really well. We went and reviewed all our existing agreements, and they may or may not come back with some asks, which oddly enough were not mentioned there, so I won't bring them up. It's up to them to ask. The other section is you've individually asked us for requests one time or another that needed an action. I'd just like to make sure that that they're getting addressed, and that we acknowledge them, so that if we are seeing that it's a common thread among councillors, then clearly there's an area where we can either improve or better engage the public. So the three main ones that were resolved, one was in Fort Assiniboine regarding people clearing their driveways and dumping the snow in our ditches and plowing from their side of the driveway across the road. It's addressed. Procedurally though, we've updated our processes. The concern was when we noticed it, we sent out I don't want to say a threatening letter, but it was more in line with a stick than a carrot. So our processes that we've changed internally is we're going to do the carrot letter first and then the stick letter second if it continues to be a problem. The Gibson Road issue we investigated, and while it's not the resolution the area wanted, it is resolved, and we will be finishing the layering there this year to resolve that. Blue Ridge Unsightly has been cleaned up, and so my understanding is the undesirable aspect has been mitigated. The three big things that are kind of outstanding that we're still trying to figure out or just need more time on is the straightening out of our entrance signs. We're confident we're going to hit our June deadline that we self-imposed, but if something changes, we'll let you know. There was still some concerns from some of you about school zone flybys. Clearly it wasn't a localized issue because the concerns we had heard were for the other school district. And so, we're looking at different measures that we can do. We're also going to be investigating what other municipalities do. I know some potentially provide funding regarding the cameras to help with that enforcement. But we don't know what the right answer is yet, but we just want to ensure you we're looking at it. Fire service review is, we're started getting prepared for that, but the end goal will be that it'll be before council in November. Right after the election, the goal is, here's the review, and we'll let the next council, so to speak, just make sure that is the continued vision. And then that breaks it up for the quarter that undersells all the work, but I think the directors have shown just how much we are actually doing, but these are some other highlights that I thought just deserved some attention.
Councillor Dean?
Through the chair to Matthew, with respect to the flyby issue, the school zone flyby issue, the representatives from Pembina Hill spoke to an awareness campaign that they're advocating the government to undertake.
Yep.
Could I ask that you find out what stage Pembina Hills is at, whether they're, they've sent letters, and just to see if a letter of support might help their initiative.
Okay. Councillor Wellham?
Through your administration, with regards to your items, like council-directed items, so it's a question on that. Like, I would say most of these never came through council, so they're not a direction of council. What's the what's the procedure and policy on this? Because these aren't items that we were redirected you to do. It's just these are one-on-one asks from councillors, and it with moving forward with regards to that, like, is this the proper way for this to be done? Because I mean, if it's a direction of council, it should come to the council meeting, not a direction of one councillor telling administration what to do.
Through the chair, that's absolutely valid, and I think being that this is the first quarterly report, I think there's probably some naming changes there. I would look at every one of these as an inquiry from the public or a clarification that was given. So at the Finance Committee, there was a clarification given on entrance signs when the item that was discussed was replacing our entrance signs. And then the clarification came was, we never actually intended to want to replace our entrance signs, they were just crooked. So to me, that was a translation that was lost during those discussions, so I looked at that as we can resolve that just administratively. None of these tasks are changing our workload, these are, they're all inquiries on what's going on, and this is me just updating you as a whole on what's going on, recognizing that I should be, or our staff should be, sending council as a whole updates on most of these, where they're applicable. But you're absolutely right, they are not directions from council, and I can address this report accordingly. If we want to be overly formal and request that any inquiry from council goes back to council as a whole to cover us that way, we can. I don't think anyone of you would be happy with added bureaucracy on it. But from a formality point of view, you're absolutely right. These aren't council directions. This is us trying to answer your ratepayer inquiries in more detail, more than anything.
For sure, and the one that highlights me the most is the fire services structure review. That one has a financial impact in the municipality and an impact on the staff, probably more significant than the rest, and it was never a direction of council for that review to occur, so I just, as far to my recollection, so I just wanted to clarify, or I just wanted to bring that one up because that's kind of one of the more significant of the 6 you presented.
Absolutely. And so through the chair, that is budgeted for this year. So the direction was given from council for us to investigate it.
Okay.
I did have a discussion with a councillor here about fire. We also, I believe, I don't know which one of you brought it up, but I think it was Devin. So we did receive anonymous complaints about our fire department as well. That it was part of that overall discussion too. And it's, hey, we've received it. We know there are some concerns from the public, but it's actively underway was the intent. But that has been approved by council as a project. So that one in specific.
I forgot, or I wasn't here that day. I apologize.
All right, anything else for the CAO? Seeing if I can get a motion to accept the CAO quarterly report. Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion the council receives the Q1 CAO report for information.
Councillor, call the question. All in favor? That's moved. And if I can get a motion to go into closed meeting at 1:17 under 17 to 19.
You don't get to see it. It's a new permission.
Taking my charger.
You can take it.
At
gonna be okay?
1:18 p.m. in accordance with Code Section 1719 regarding the CAO review.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? And we're going into closed session there. Nikitas, let's know.